Hamas. Its intensified attacks on Israel during the war in Gaza suggest that it is prepared to rally behind Palestinians. This is rather unsurprising. Hezbollah has continually evolved since its inception, and this is not the first time it's aligned with the Palestinians. But given that its primary sponsor is Tehran, perhaps the real task is to identify not simply the goals of Hezbollah, but those of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This inquiry was presented by me, Tanya Beckett, produced by Louise Clark, researched by Matt Toulson, and mixed by Gareth Jones. The editor was Tara McDermott.
That was the inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
This week on Unreserved, join us to celebrate the 10-year anniversary show taped live at the Park Theatre in Winnipeg. You'll hear from guests like Doozy, a rising star in the Winnipeg music scene.
I think I was in second or third grade or something like that, and I went to the Winnipeg Folk Festival, and I saw one of my favorite bands. They were called A Tribe Called Red. There you go. They're now called The Hallucination, and I was on my mom's shoulders actually at the Big Blue at Night stage, and I just saw the whole crowd. I saw the visuals on the tent, and I saw these dudes mixing powwow music with electronic music.
That's this week on Unreserved with Rosanna Deerchild. CBC Radio 1, sharing the voices of Canada.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Well, we've arrived. It's back to school for most students across the province today, and we're here to start your day with you. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, live from downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, or on YouTube Live on CBC this morning. Thank you for joining us. In Winnipeg today for back to school, mix of sun and cloud, 30% chance of showers early this morning. So maybe a bit of an extra layer or an umbrella in the backpack. Winds are going to be northwest 20 to 40, and then our high today is 25. Let's say good morning to everyone who's on our team. Chloe Friesen's back at it, our studio director, filling in for Corey Funk right now. Morning, Chloe. Also, Abby Adeyemi is our technical producer on the team. Good morning, Abby. Kevin Nipatebo is behind the controls of YouTube. Hello there, Kevin. And Heather Wells is in our news center for our Wednesday morning start to the show. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, as you mentioned, class is back in session across the province, and a cell phone back now is in effect. That's a ban in effect. The rules set out by the province prohibit kindergarten to grade 8 students from using phones at all during school hours. Students in grades 9 to 12 can only use their phones during lunch and other breaks. Alain Leberge at Division Scolaire Franco-Manitoban says they've had a similar ban in place for the past year, and he says students became more involved in their studies. So we'll hear more about that coming up. As well, a Manitoba designer is getting ready to see her designs on the runway for Paris Fashion Week. Alicia Sutherland, owner and designer of Ali's Ribbons, lives in Winnipeg, originally is from Peguis. She heads to Paris later this month and isn't giving a lot away, just saying that there's some intense ribbon work involved in her work. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we had no shortage of places to choose from this morning with back to school. There's about 200,000 students going back in Manitoba. There's 40-plus divisions. And Jim Agapito's going to be out a couple times this morning at school in Charleswood is where he landed to reflect the mood and the stories of the day. So we'll hear from Jim live on location out and about in the community this morning. In addition, on the program today, on August 1st, Information Radio was live from Clear Lake. They were putting in the curtain to try and contain zebra mussels. What happened? We'll get an update from Bartley Kivas. World Reports next.
Today on Q.
I'm Vivek Shreyas sitting in for Tom Power. As a founding member of legendary rap crew Wu-Tang Clan, producer RZA changed hip-hop with his ear for experimentation. He'll talk to Tom Power about his first album of orchestral music, A Ballet Through Mud.
And then I called the orchestra and said, hey, guys, how much is it going to cost me to record this thing?
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Those who lived in the tower were badly failed over a number of years.
That is Sir Martin Morbick, chair of the inquiry examining the fire at London's Grenfell Tower. 72 people were killed when the high-rise caught fire in 2017. The report blames governments and manufacturers for hiding safety concerns and cutting costs. Anna Cunningham has been following this story and joins us from London. Anna, what are some of the conclusions from this report?
Well, I think there are 7 key takeaways in this, the headline being dishonesty and incompetence, really. The fingers being pointed at the manufacturers of cladding products, saying that that was by far the largest contributor to the fire. They were found to have engaged in systematic dishonesty and also used deliberate and sustained strategies, it says, to make their products appear safe. And also the companies that were involved in that refurbishment are described as being incompetent. It says that these were missed by governments from the early 1990s onwards, and it culminated in decades of failure. Now, specifically, it's pointing to the 2010 Conservative Liberal Democrat government, saying that they have been strongly criticised, that they focused on cutting.
What changes are expected out of this report?
I think the main change that people will be looking to is the future of building such housing, questions about whether it's suitable even to house people in tall story blocks. This was 24 stories high. Certainly there will be change looked into in the London Fire Brigade's policy. We expect to hear more from the Prime Minister in the coming hours, and also reaction from the families of those who lived in that apartment building.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Anna Cunningham reporting in London. Russia has launched another air attack, this time in western Ukraine. At least 7 people have been killed. A building burns in the city of Lviv. The city's mayor says a child and medical worker are among the dead. The latest round of strikes come as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky plans to shake up his cabinet. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has submitted his resignation. Kuleba has been one of the more prominent Ukrainian officials rallying allies to support Ukraine. Several other ministers have also offered to step aside. The resignation will be discussed by lawmakers at their next session. The U.S. Justice Department has laid terrorism charges against 6 senior Hamas leaders. The charges are in connection with the October 7th attack in Israel. Leader Yahya Sinwar is among those facing charges for providing support to Hamas, a group the U.S. has designated a terrorist organization. Sasha Petrusek joins me now from Jerusalem. And Sasha, what can you tell us about these charges?
Well, this is the first time that the U.S. government has gone after Hamas, the militant group that's dominant in Gaza, since October 7th, and really since before that as well, in this legal way. There are 6 charges, although this may be more symbolic than it is real, because at least 3 of the 6 people who are being charged are believed to be dead. And the most prominent of these, Sinwar, is somewhere in a tunnel in Gaza, effectively under siege by Israeli troops, and he may not make it out alive if they actually find him. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland says this process is just really the beginning of going after Hamas.
These actions will not be our last. The Justice Department has a long memory. We will pursue the terrorists responsible for murdering Americans and those who illegally provide them with material support for the rest of their lives.
Sasha, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said for any ceasefire deal to move ahead, Israel would need to maintain control of the Philadelphia corridor. What is at issue here?
Well, this corridor is a 14-kilometer strip of land along the border between Gaza and Egypt at the very south end. And it is riddled with tunnels, which have been used in the past to smuggle weapons into Gaza. Israel says it needs control of the corridor to prevent those weapons from coming back in again after this war. But it's also become a very key barrier to any ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, which is critical because that would bring hostages home. Hamas is insisting that all Israeli troops leave Gaza before there's any agreement. Netanyahu, in his speech on Monday, insisted that Israeli troops would remain there, in particular along this Philadelphia corridor, indefinitely.
Thank you, Sasha.
My pleasure.
The CBC Sasha Petrusik in Jerusalem. The Bank of Canada will announce its latest interest rate decision this morning. Many economists are predicting a rate cut of 0.25 percentage point. That would bring the key policy rate to 4.25%. It would be the third consecutive cut by the central bank. Despite strong economic growth in the second quarter, momentum was weak heading into the third. If the unemployment rate does not drop and economic growth continues to slow, economists expect further interest rate cuts in the fall. Forestry is one of the highest carbon-emitting sectors in Canada. That is one of the findings from the annual logging emissions update. It looks at how the federal government accounts for forestry emissions. And as Ben Shingler tells us, this year's report raises questions about the accuracy of Ottawa's figures.
A harvester fells trees north of Montreal. The forestry sector generates tens of billions of dollars every year for the Canadian economy. But according to environmental groups, its greenhouse gas emissions are not fully accounted for. They say forestry is actually the third largest emitter after oil and gas and transportation.
Government and industry need to stop claiming or portraying the industry as carbon neutral, as a climate solution.
Michael Polanyi is with Nature Canada and one of the authors of a new report that says Ottawa doesn't include emissions from things like wildfires, which produced a record amount last summer. But once those forests grow back, the government designates the carbon they absorb to the forestry sector. Polanyi says this misrepresents the true climate cost of the sector.
The government needs to put in place an action plan, incentives and regulations to encourage lower carbon approaches to forestry, which will also help the sector economically in terms of accessing global markets that are increasingly demanding more sustainable products.
United Nations experts and government watchdogs have also been critical of Canada's emissions accounting. Natural Resources Canada says the government's approach is based on scientific evidence, but that it's working on changes. As for industry, the Forest Products Association of Canada didn't return a request for comment, but in the past has said the forest sector is committed to cutting greenhouse gases. Ben Shingler, CBC News, Montreal.
Climate change is creating a race against time for Canada's archaeologists. Many are trying to dig and save as many artifacts as they can along the country's coastlines before they erode. Nicole Williams has the story.
Here on the shores of the Ottawa River, archaeologists are busy digging, scraping, and sifting in the hopes of finding a piece of history. Around the nation's capital, archaeologists have found artifacts older than the pyramids, many left behind by Indigenous people who would use the rivers and lakes in the regions as highways, traveling by canoe to meet and trade goods.
The land is very important, and it tells our story and it tells our history.
Jennifer Tanasco is from Gitigan-Zibi Anishinabeg. Archaeologists have partnered with the First Nation and others to try and help uncover that history, and in part save as many artifacts as they can from erosion. Monica Micah is an archaeologist with the National Capital Commission.
But it is definitely sad as an archaeologist to literally see artifacts falling into the river, never to be recovered again.
But experts say the combination of more powerful storms and the loss of sea and lake ice means shore and coastlines are eroding away faster than ever. Matthew Betts is with the Canadian Museum of History.
The world is in the grips of an unmitigated heritage crisis caused by climate change. Canada sits at the apex of this crisis.
Betts says there aren't enough resources to dig every archaeologically significant site, and it means making difficult choices about what history to save. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. The most read story at cbcnews.ca is about Royalmount. It is a new mall in Montreal. Apparently, more than just your regular old mall. That story on our main page. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. Are you up? You getting ready for the school bells to ring? From beautiful plains to Pembina Trails and Seven Oaks to St. James and River East Transcona. It's back to school. Some 200,000 students are heading back this morning, 6:10 a.m. Welcome to Wednesday. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Pretty decent day to head back weather-wise. 19 degrees currently, and Abby will be in with a deeper look at our forecast. Also, we're going to find out where CBC's Jim Agapito is heading out to cover back to school this morning. He's going to be live reporting into our show. In this hour of the program, it is widely expected, as you've been hearing on World Report, the Bank of Canada will be cutting interest rates once again. We're going to look deeper at the impact of that, so stay tuned. Also, wasps. They're brutal. I know we say this every August, but they do seem to be particularly terrible this year. We'll find out more about that and also medically, how you handle it. Dr. Bardwaj has that on his medical column, and he certainly, our house doctor says he's been seeing more calls this fall as well with people that are having issues after they're stung. So that's coming up at about 10 to 7, our medical column. Right now, let's get back to headlines in Manitoba. Here is Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a curtain installed below the surface of Clear Lake to isolate zebra mussels was only in place for 2 days. Parks Canada says that curtain was dislodged by high wind, and now Parks is working with a contractor to try to push it back in place. Cottagers at Clear Lake say they're disappointed Parks Canada took so long to install the curtain. And as students fill up classes in Manitoba today, they won't have their cell phones with them. A province-wide cell phone ban is now in effect. Stephen Ross, superintendent at Western School Division in Morden, says if those devices aren't relinquished, the students will head to the office where their parents will be contacted. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
Heather, let's give the back-to-school vibes. You ready?
Okay.
Okay, let's say good morning, Chloe Friesen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Abby.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jim Agapito.
Good morning.
Good morning, Heather Wells.
Good morning.
Who were you in school? I was total nerdy, student council, drama, last to be picked for the teams, but made them kid. Heather?
Oh my goodness! I was the yearbook editor, and was always in the dark room. So.
I love that you were the yearbook editor. It's like you're like living your dream now. I love that. Abby, who were you in school?
I was that guy that says good morning to the bus driver every day. Good morning, Bill.
Oh, we are not surprised at that either. And Chloe Friesen?
I was a keener in everything.
Jim Agapito is going to be heading out to school for us today. He's in studio first before he goes out to his assignment. So, Jim, where are you heading? Which school?
I am off to Ecole Charles Wood School, and I'm going to meet and greet the parents and all the people that make that place wild, like the students.
I love that.
I was that wild kid myself.
That's who you were?
I'm hoping that I find them this morning and I get to chat with them about what it's like.
So what would you say? Because first day of school for all the students listening and families listening, it does evoke lots of feelings. We talk about the excitement, but there can also be anxiety. There can also be kids waking up going, oh, I gotta go to school. What do you say to the quote unquote wild kids?
I say just be yourself. Know that, education is a lifelong journey. You're going to have fun. There's going to be a lot of things that you don't like, but in the long run, it's going to make you a better person and you're going to learn so much. And I think life is all about lifelong learning. So school is just that first stepping stone.
Go, Jim. All right. I know you got to literally head out the door. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we'll have more chats this morning, of course. Let's get into what the weather is going to be like for all the students heading back, Abby.
Right now, it's 19 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions we're seeing out there. It is mild. It's not as hot as yesterday. We should be seeing a mix of sun and clouds today. A slight chance of showers sometime this morning. We're noticing some local smoke will come in early in the afternoon period. Some northwest winds will bring cooler air later, and then we'll see our temperatures get into a high of 25, and that partly cloudy conditions is expected to stay with us all through the night. In other regions, Thompson is currently cloudy at 10, and same conditions for Churchill at 16. We're seeing we have this air quality advisory in effect for Dauphin due to wildfire smoke rather, and that should stay with the folks in the Dauphin region for most of the day. Current temperature there is 14, but for today we're just going to be seeing a mix of sun and clouds.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
And Chloe Friesen, anything to remind people about for traffic?
Give yourself a little extra time on the commute today would be my advice. There's going to be a lot more cars on the road. You're going to see some school buses. You're going to see crosswalks in action. So just be very aware of your surroundings this morning. Travel safely. And back to school. Very exciting. If there is something out there on the roads that you think folks should know about, give us a call on our commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
for those of you who are a little bit stressed by all the back to school and thinking, is the summer fun gone? All those summer moments that you might have made at a concert or two, for example. Well, no. There's a lot of great music coming up in Winnipeg. For September alone, just looking at a quick list, William Prince, Kings of Leon, Collingsworth Family, Simple Plan, Avril Lavigne, Extreme, Sam Hunt. All those artists are going to be rolling through Winnipeg. And we have Winnipeg folk artist Madeline Roger also out with new music. Nerve is the latest release from Madeline. It's been described as a soul-bearing collection of songs, drawn out of her vulnerability and hardships over the last few years, she says. Madeline actually was at CBC yesterday in studio and joined Faith Fundell and Up to Speed to talk about it.
First of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
What do you make of how folks are reacting to it?
It's been so beautiful. I've been sitting on this record for such a long time, and I've been getting so many amazing messages from dear people in the community, and then also from people that I don't know. And so far, I'm really thrilled. People seem to be understanding what it's all about.
You call it Nerve. Depending on who you ask, it has many meanings. But what about for you? What does Nerve mean to you?
It's two things at once. One is that it is this sort of that electrifying feeling of going towards something so raw and to the core. So it's that like the pulse of vulnerability. And then it's also having the gumption to go forth and do things that are terrifying.
I mean, those are all very like physically real, but also real in all these other ways, right? Why Nerve of all things? What is it about that sort of drew you into making that the focus, or making that the thing that describes your music?
I was really pulled to push myself as much as I possibly could, and that really meant doing things that felt terrifying. And so I sort of used it as this guiding light for how I was going to make all of the decisions. And things like we tracked the whole record with no headphones or click track, and I played acoustic guitar and sang at the same time as the producer. So we ended up using full takes. There was no chance to edit or auto-tune anything. So it's all just a real performance.
And the Nerve is essentially, this is a one-time thing, or this is a one-take kind of thing. You can't go back in time to fix something.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that this is me. I'm not going to try to present this doctored, polished, perfect version of myself. I'm going to try to really find the real me within the songs I'm writing and in how I want to share the record.
It's a good description for Nerve, because I mean, it sounds like that's the literal version of what Nerve is, right?
Yeah, like no protection.
Folks can probably hear a bit of the guitar that you're holding. You brought your guitar. You're going to play a song for us, but before you play, tell us more about what this song is and what it's about.
I'm going to start with a song called Wildflowers. I feel like it encompasses, in a lot of ways, the whole record. I wanted to tell as long of a story about a loving relationship as I could in as few words as possible. And I think that's kind of the micro version of what the record does on a whole as well.
Let's take a listen. This is Madeline Roger with Wildflowers.
When I first loved you, you said, hold on, I'm not ready. So I went walking through tall grass, hoping we'd lay among wildflowers, among I knew that you loved me when you wouldn't leave my side, and when you brought me a bouquet from the roadside, 'cause you will not meet my eye. I hope you'll think of me whenever you find wildflowers.
Pretty song, hey? Nice way to start the morning today. That's Winnipeg folk artist Madeline Roger. A live performance of Wildflowers that was yesterday right here in Studio 15 in conversation there as well with Faith Fundal. Her album Nerve just dropped and you can find it wherever you stream your music.
Psst. Hey, Tiger.
Yeah, Polar Bear?
Is everyone gone?
You bet.
Let's party! When the Assiniboine Park Zoo closes, the party starts. Brew at the Zoo is back September 13th. Local brewers, live music, one great night. Brew at the Zoo, proudly sponsored by CBC. Hey, settle down, monkeys. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Well, are you up early getting the kids ready, or are you a student up early getting ready for school? If you want to call CBC's listener line and shout out your school and your grade, it's pretty simple. You say, "Hi, I'm Marcy Marcusa. I'm going back to River East. I'm in grade 11," which was true at some point, but not today. But call a listener line and we'll get some of your calls on the air this morning to reflect the mood of back to school. 788-3205 is where you can call us and leave those messages. Well, later this morning, the Bank of Canada is widely expected to cut interest rates. This will be for the third consecutive time, and it continues the process of bringing down borrowing costs. Now, the last cut was in July, and the rate dropped to 4.5%. For more, David McDonald is here, senior economist for the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. It's a research institute that's focused on social, economic, and environmental issues. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
So, assuming this goes ahead, this cut, what are you looking for in today's announcement?
Well, this is one of the in-between announcements, and so every second announcement they put out the monetary policy report, which gives you a lot of detail in terms of what the bank is looking at in terms of projections for inflation and economic growth and so on. That's not what's going to happen later on this morning. We've got three more decisions this year, one of which is this morning, and then we've got one in October and one in December. I expect we'll see at least a quarter point on all of those. We may well actually see a half point. And so what I'll be watching for is to see, do we see that half point today, or do we see any indication of when that might happen over the course of the fall?
What are the domestic economic indicators that are leading economists to believe that the Bank of Canada will in fact announce a cut later?
Well, the biggest one is inflation. I mean, this is the Bank of Canada's raison d'etre, is to keep inflation down. And the inflation rate has been falling. And so the latest data is at 2.5%. It will come down likely further in the third quarter to 2.3%. We're likely to get a bit of a tailwind from what's called base year effects, where if the big price increases happened more than 12 months ago, they don't count anymore towards the inflation rate. And so mortgage interest costs and rent, these are two big parts of what's driving inflation right now. The big increases for those actually happened roughly a year ago. And so as we kick those out of the series over the coming months, we'll see inflation come down sort of mechanically. The bank's probably also watching the unemployment rate, which has gone up a fair amount over the last year and a half. You know, we're sitting at 5% in 2023. We're now at 6.4%. Oddly, this is good news for the Bank of Canada. They did want to see the unemployment rate higher. They thought that it was driving inflation, and so they are seeing it higher. And so both of those probably will lead some credence to cuts over the course of the fall.
You already mentioned who's going to potentially benefit from this, right? Renters, people with mortgages, obviously. Who does not benefit from a rate reduction?
Well, if you've got a lot of cash that you're investing in short-term instruments, think of like a high-yield savings account or a GIC or something like that. Those folks would likely see less interest as a result of this, and they'd see it pretty quickly. Now, in terms of rate decreases at this point, most folks are going to be winners in a broad sense and in the longer term. In the short term, a lot of folks are protected from interest rate changes on their biggest debts, like their mortgages. I mean, mortgages are mostly at fixed interest rates, or even if they're at variable rates, they're at fixed payments. And so a lot of folks don't see an immediate impact of a change in interest rates. If your mortgage, say, was coming up for renewal, this would be, somewhat beneficial for you to see a slightly lower rate. Although we do have to take it in context that if you're renewing a mortgage, you're probably renewing a mortgage that you got, say, 5 years ago when the rates were, 0.75, 1%, and you've got to renew at 4.25.
That's a big
may
deal.
Be better than 4.5, but you're still, folks need to be prepared that they're going to be paying a lot more in mortgage payments if they're going to renew in the next couple of years.
Would you lock in if you were to get a mortgage today, or would you still be waiting? Like, how volatile is everything right now in your view?
It depends on the spread. And so I think one thing that folks should understand is that we'll likely continue in this rate cut cycle. We're at 4.5 today. We'll likely be at 4.25 in a couple hours. What we'll start to talk now about is probably the neutral rate. And so this is the idea that there's a rate where the Bank of Canada isn't stepping on the gas, but it's also not stepping on the brakes. That neutral rate is probably about 2.75%, or that's the mid-range of the bank's estimate. And so, we'll likely be going down towards that, 2.75. And so if you're on a variable rate, you'll likely see decreases. One of the issues, though, for variable rates recently is that the spread is pretty big. So you start off at a much higher variable rate than you would at a fixed rate. So it sort of depends on your circumstances. Certainly, interest rates are going to be lower a year or two from now than they are today. But your circumstances in terms of whether you need, CMHC insurance and so on, will dictate, what's a better deal for you. It's not obvious either way at this point.
Are we affected by anything that's happening in the States in terms of these decisions on our rates here in Canada?
Well, what's interesting in the U.S. is that they started later in terms of rate hikes, and they are also starting later in terms of rate cuts. They haven't seen rate cuts, in fact. The first one's likely to come on September 18th, a couple weeks from now. That's pretty expected. So, it's not like we're going to see a big boom in the stock market because we see a rate cut on September 18th. It's well expected. One of the things I think we should probably be concerned about with respect to the U.S. is the possibility of a recession. When we saw a big decline in stock market values in early August, this was kicked off by a bad unemployment rate report where folks were becoming concerned that maybe the Fed, the U.S. Federal Reserve, had waited too long to start cutting rates and that they were baking in a recession. Obviously, a U.S. recession would bode badly for us here in Canada, but the same concern probably exists here in Canada, which is that the Bank of Canada has likely kept interest rates too high for too long, potentially baking in a recession here in Canada, just because it takes so long for changes in the interest rate to have an impact on the economy. It takes in the neighborhood of 18 months to 2 years. So, the Bank of Canada or the Federal Reserve, they sometimes talk as if they're managing the inflation rate, say, in October or November. They're not really. I mean, they're really managing the inflation rate in 2026.
Years out.
And so,
yeah.
So it's years away when we see the full impact of these.
Really appreciate your analysis. We will see what they definitively do later this morning, as we've been saying. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That is David McDonald, senior economist for the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, talking about the interest rates announcement that's going to be coming later this morning. The Bank of Canada is widely expected to cut the rate today, as you've been hearing. Partly cloudy for the first day back at school. Just a reminder of the school zone. Slow down. You're going to get ticketed, but the first and most important thing is for safety. You're back to 30K in school zone. 788-3093 if you need to reach us in traffic. Business news ahead right now. Your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 6:30. It's a beautiful morning. We're at 19 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. A mix of sun and clouds to start the day, but we're going to see widespread smoke developing early this afternoon. Today's high is 25. Well, class is back in session this week for Manitoba students, and a cell phone ban also now in effect. The rules set out by the province last month prohibit kindergarten to grade 8 students from using phones during school hours. Students in grades 9 to 12 can only use their cell phones during lunch and other breaks. Alain Laberge is superintendent of Division Scolaire Franco-Manitobain. He says they have already had a similar ban in place for the past year.
Students being involved in their own education, like they understand now that the phone being away, it's not the end of the world if you don't get a text from your friend for an hour. It puts things in perspective that we lived a life that was very good before.
Laberge's division is set to limit screen time to no more than an hour a day this year. A curtain installed below the surface of Clear Lake in August was supposed to isolate an area infested with invasive zebra mussels. But as CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, that curtain was only in place for 2 days.
Visitors to Clear Lake enjoyed the beach at Wasagaming in late July, while just down the shore, workers were assembling an 1,800-meter curtain. Parks Canada hoped to hive off a section of the lake where zebra mussels were found the previous fall. That curtain was completed on August 6th, but dislodged by high winds only 2 days later. Damien Wall speaks for Riding Mountain National Park.
By the 8th of August, that curtain had moved out of where it was supposed to stay in the lake.
The curtain has not been moved back. Cottagers at Wasagaming say they're disappointed with Parks Canada. Kyle Basilow has had a cottage at Clear Lake for 20 years.
I don't know why they went to put that curtain up immediately to try and isolate the area.
Wall says Parks Canada is working with its contractor to redeploy the curtain in the hopes that area of the lake can be sealed off and treated with potash to kill the mussels. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now to Ukraine. The city of Lviv being targeted overnight by intense Russian missile fire. Lviv was one of several cities hit by drone and missile strikes as the most recent Russian campaign continues. Early reports suggest there have been at least 7 deaths. Meanwhile, one of the most recognizable faces in the Ukrainian war effort appears to be on the verge of leaving the government cabinet. Reports suggest Dmytro Kuleba is one of several ministers expected to hand in their resignations today ahead of a senior-level shakeup by President Volodymyr Zelensky. Along with Zelensky, Kuleba has been a key figure in securing Western military support for Ukraine. Canola farmers in Canada are worried about their income after China announced an investigation of Canadian imports. It appears a trade war is brewing between the two countries. Jennifer Dolman is a canola farmer west of Ottawa.
This definitely devastates the price for everybody. And yeah, it's just one more chink away at it. It definitely makes us concerned. It's already dropped the price.
Canada plans to impose a 100% tariff on imports of Chinese electric vehicles and a 25% tariff on imported steel and aluminum from China. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Manitoba designer is getting set to see her designs on the runway for Paris Fashion Week. Alicia Sutherland, owner and designer of Ali's Ribbons, lives in Winnipeg now, but is originally from Peguis First Nation. She heads to Paris later this month. Sutherland didn't give too much away about the collection she's showing, but says it includes gowns and some men's pieces.
Very intense ribbon work, I would say. I like to step outside the box with creativity on that. A lot of color, a lot of different types of textures and fabrics that are going to be combined into one gown.
Sutherland says she initially started sewing as a hobby in 2018 and then started her company in 2020. She showcases her collection in Paris on September 27th. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, speaking of style, I'm just putting this up on YouTube, on our Facebook page. And I'm wondering if we can use your pictures on YouTube, because whether you're wearing something cool for back to school this morning or whether you're remembering something that was so cool that you wore, like my Club Monaco pea green sweatshirt in 1991. Hello. Then we'd love to see those pictures, but we need permission to post them on YouTube. So I'm going to post that up on my page on Facebook. Facebook. That is Marcy Marcusa on Facebook. And if you post there and you're okay with it, we'll get some of those, we'll share some of those style pics on our YouTube channel coming up on the show today. All right, let's get into the back to school weather. It's time for your regional forecast with Abby.
Across the province, we will be seeing a mix of sun and clouds with smoke felt in the afternoon, and highs will be ranging from 9 in Churchill to 26 in Morris, and more partly cloudy skies will roll in the evening with a chance of showers in some areas. Currently, Winnipeg 19 and mostly cloudy. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds today. Some smoke will roll in the afternoon. Breezy conditions from the northwest, and then that will bring some cool air. We'll get to a high of 25, and for tonight, more partly cloudy conditions, and we cool off to 9. Brandon is at 18 and mostly cloudy at this time. This will be clearing as we get into the morning, but then that local smoke will roll in, because this is what we'll be seeing in most part of the southern part of the province. The high will be 25, though with the humidity factored in, it's going to feel like 27. Up north in Thompson, it is 10 and mostly cloudy at this time. We're looking for mainly cloudy conditions for the rest of the day, and the highs will touch 13. Some light winds will come with that. Further north in Churchill, 6 and cloudy. The forecast includes clear skies and breezy northwest conditions. High will be near 9 degrees. In Dauphin, it is 14, and we are seeing some misty conditions now. That is due to that smoke in the region where we have that air quality advisory in effect. So you need to take care. We'll see a high of 24 for folks in Dauphin. Gimli is partly cloudy at 18 at this time. For the Interlake region today, you should be expecting a mix of sun and clouds, and also we have that smoke developing by the afternoon period rolling in for that region. High around 25. Morris is cloudy at 19. We're going to get to a high of 26 for the Pembina Valley region today. We're just going to be seeing a mix of sun and clouds. The smoke will also be developing later in the day. Across board, it's going to be more like a mix of sun and clouds. That smoke will roll in the afternoon, and then we'll see partly cloudy and cooler temperatures in the evening, and then the same factor for tomorrow, a day with a mix of sun and clouds. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at 19 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Chloe Friesen.
Hello. Happy back to school. Traffic is going to be a little bit busier today. Also a reminder, crosswalks are going to be busy. School zones are back in effect, 30 kilometers an hour in those areas from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So make sure you are slowing down for safety and to avoid hefty fines. But if there is something that is getting in your way on your commute, whether you're headed back to school or not, I'd love to hear from you. That number is 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Chloe. It is now 22 minutes to 7 o'clock. If you're a regular listener, you know then that Christely Ramlakan's up next. She joins us via Zoom live with our business news from CBC. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So we just had a big discussion, actually, an interview about the latest interest rate announcement from the Bank of Canada. We're expecting that later today. I know you'll be tracking that, but there's other financial news because a company has just had the biggest one-day market cap drop for U.S. stock in history.
Yes, that's right. Tech company NVIDIA has seen a plunge that wiped out nearly $300 billion of its market cap. So that's the total value of a publicly traded company's outstanding shares owned by stockholders. So shares are down after Bloomberg reported that the company received a subpoena from the U.S. Department of Justice as part of an antitrust investigation. The probe has not reached the stage of a formal complaint, but the DOJ is asking questions about whether NVIDIA makes it harder to switch to other suppliers of AI chips. So NVIDIA's huge rise in recent years has been directly tied to its dominance in AI chips for data centers. It has more than 80% of the market. And the company established itself years before competitors started taking the category seriously. So nearly a decade ago, it developed a programming language for its chips, which is a key tool for engineers who train advanced AI models like the one at the heart of ChatGPT. Now, many of NVIDIA's top customers are cloud companies and these huge tech giants, including Microsoft, Alphabet, Meta, Amazon, and Tesla. Now, Marcy, in response to all of this, NVIDIA says the company wins on merit, as reflected in its benchmark results and value to customers, who it says can choose whatever solution is best for them.
To another story, and moving to news about yet another company that's rolling back DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Who now?
Yes, Molson Coors, so that's the maker of Coors Light and Miller Beers, is the latest company to pull back on its diversity policies and initiatives. The company says it will no longer participate in a scoring system by the Human Rights Campaign, which is an advocacy group that gives scores to companies based on LGBTQ plus inclusion in the workplaces. And it also plans to no longer have supplier diversity goals, which typically aim to buy supplies from companies owned by minorities or women. So in an email, a company email, Molson Coors says it has been working on changing its culture to evolve its work focused on DEI to a broader view. And the email says the driving force behind the shift was the understanding that when all people know they are welcome, they are more engaged, motivated, and committed to the company's collective success. Now, Ford, Lowe's, and the maker of Jack Daniel's whiskey have also announced changes to their policies recently, and conservative activist and filmmaker Robbie Starbuck has been a central player in the push against DEI initiatives. So he has launched campaigns on social media against companies. And yesterday, he also took credit for the changes at Molson Coors, saying he had messaged executives at the company. Now, the Human Rights Campaign Foundation says attacks on DEI initiatives are short-sighted and make workplaces less safe and less inclusive.
Changing gears here, it seems like many people traveled for vacation this summer. What's been the impact of that on the economy?
Well, it's been quite large. The travel industry will contribute a record $11 trillion U.S. to the global GDP this year. And that's according to a new report from the World Travel and Tourism Council, which says 1 out of every $10 spent globally will be on travel. So the sector is expected to support nearly 348 million jobs this year, almost 14 million more than in 2019, the previous record prior to the pandemic. And the travel and tourism industry's contribution to global gross domestic product is expected to reach new heights as consumers increasingly see travel as an essential part of their budgets. But, Marcy, not everyone is happy about all of this. Some European hotspots have reached a breaking point, with tourists the targets of backlash. So protesters have staged hunger strikes against tourism developments. Local officials have threatened to cut off water to illegal vacation rentals. And some residents have even been spraying tourists with water pistols. So, of course, while tourism is a critical economic driver for many destinations, some residents argue that more tourism revenue needs to be invested in communities and infrastructure.
What's up in the markets this morning, Crystalie?
In Europe, markets are lower. Tech stocks are obviously down following declines on Wall Street. Germany, the UK, and France are all down. In Asia, markets have plunged. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all down. Oil is up 53 cents to $70.87 US per barrel. Gold is down $3.60 to $2,519.40 US per ounce. And the dollar is just slightly down 0.01 of a cent to 73.8 cents US.
Well, as we continue to reflect the mood of back to school, Crystalie, do you have a favorite memory or outfit or teacher or grade, or what are you thinking about?
Oh yeah, I remember the first day of high school, when you switch a school. And at the time, those Jesus is my homeboy shirts were really popular. I even went down to the States and got it at Hot Topic. So I had these in the 80s were like coming back in the 2000s when I went to high school. Yeah. So I had these like bright big pink earrings and the black t-shirt. I remember I was listening to Britney Spears, I think Blackout album while I was driving to school.
I love how it's so visceral, but it just is, right? I know those memories. All right. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlichan with Business News. And if you want to share anything about back to school, maybe your house is busy this morning, or you're thinking about your time back in the day, you can always give us a call at the show. Well, up next, as back to school season is in full swing, today we can tell you that most of the divisions will be back in class. Now, there are some exceptions to that, and you likely know if you're in Evergreen School Division or Garden Valley, for example, sleep in one more day. Students are back there tomorrow. However, most of the divisions across the province are back today. That means some 200,000 students back in class across about 40 different divisions, 39 of them here in the city and surrounding areas. Well, back to school season also means that it can be a stressful time for students, especially if you're going to a new school, if you're making that transition. CBC's Meg Roberts spoke to some students to get their ideas about how to start the school year right.
Don't mind if people talk bad about you, because honestly, just be chill. There's nothing really to worry about.
Have the right materials and everything, be ready and be yourself. Yeah, always bring a lunch so you're not hungry. So, spoken from experience, forgot many lunches, but yeah. Be who you are and be proud, so yeah, you'll have a good year.
If I'm gonna be honest, do care about your studies. Even though it's the first few weeks of school, it's still a serious thing, right? Because if you goof up once in the beginning of the year, it's gonna weigh you down for the rest of the semester. And yeah, so I could give out. For kids younger than me, I'm gonna be honest, just take it with a light heart while being serious, it's school, right? You don't gotta, be too serious about it. You gotta enjoy it, right? You're there for 6 hours a day. You have to be really nice about it.
Be aware you'll get harder math.
I would say have a good fit, but also be it's not as bad as you think it is, and just gotta go through it.
Have a good fit. What do you mean by that?
Having nice shoes, if some pair of decent shorts, some dress pants, maybe a nice t-shirt or a sweater. That's all. It might be really scary at first, but once you walk in and knows a teacher or something, or even just ask somebody, it's just get through it.
Be kind or never mind.
What do you think that means, that message? What does that say to you, that message?
It's saying that you should be kind, or you should just walk away.
Bring colored pencils and supplies.
Be brave to go back to school if it's a little bit scary.
I'm a little bit nervous because I'm going to a new school.
So if they have a scrunchie, they can give it to you and wear it around your wrist to remind you of them.
You can wear your mom's scrunchie.
Yeah.
Well, is that what you'll be doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. You can wear your mom's scrunchie around your wrist. It'll help you out. And I also love that be kind or never mind advice. CBC's Jim Agapito is going to be live out at École Charleswood School this morning. So stay tuned, because right after 7 o'clock, he's going to be talking to the superintendent of the school division there. And then he's going to talk to the principal a little bit later in the program to talk about some of the new things that are happening in that school and in that division. Well, next on the program, something that's going on right now is common for late August, but it seems to be particularly troublesome this year. Have you noticed more wasps buzzing around everywhere? Especially when you're trying to, of course, enjoy some late summer warm weather on the patio or in the backyard. Well, wasp stings, of course, can be irritating for some of us, but they are dangerous for other people. And that's why there's an uptick right now in people with wasp stings visiting the doctor at this time of year. Our house doctor, Raj Bardwaj, is up next with today's medical column.
Good morning, Marcy.
So why are wasp stings more common in the late summer?
Yeah, you got to understand a little bit about a wasp's life cycle, right? So through the spring and summer, the wasps are around, but they're not really bothering us much because they're going out, the worker wasps are going out, they're collecting protein to feed to the wasp larvae, the babies in the nest. And, so they're good pest control, right? They're eating aphids, they're eating caterpillars, other bugs, they're chewing them up, they're feeding them to the babies. The babies then excrete a sugary substance, and the worker wasps eat that. Until, the baby is ready to turn into an adult flying wasp, doesn't need to be fed anymore, and, they go out and become their own workers. So in the late summer, the ratio of workers to larvae shifts because not as many babies are being born. So the adult workers, they're not getting fed by as many larvae. So they go out now and they're trying to get their sugar fix in other places. So at first it's, nectar in flowers, just like bees. But then as the flowers start to dwindle in the later summer, then the adult wasps are looking for other sources, either sweet liquid nutrition or high protein meals. And that's where your patio comes in.
So we have these hangry wasps looking for a sugar fix. Is that why people get stung more often at this time of year? I mean, that would seem logical.
Yeah, it is, but it's interesting. We see a different pattern. So earlier in the year, we typically see people come in with multiple stings because they've disturbed a nest, and then the wasps defend their nest as a group. But nowadays, we see more people coming in with a single sting, or maybe a couple of stings if they're very unlucky. But yeah, we see way more people because the wasps are more aggressive, they're hungrier, they're more likely to sting. So now is definitely the time where if you've got an EpiPen that you're supposed to be carrying around, please carry it around, because now is the time that you're more likely to get stung by a wasp, even though you're sort of minding your own business. And even if you're not allergic, the stings can be painful, annoying. So, best to avoid getting stung if you can.
Now, I wave my arms wildly. Some say we're not supposed to be doing that, actually. But what are your thoughts on how you avoid getting stung?
So waving your arms wildly is not probably on the top 5 things you could do. A couple things. If you're
You
eating
don't say.
outside, yeah, right. If you're eating outside, a couple things is clean up any kind of sugary spills or leftovers or anything as soon as you can, because the longer they're out there, the more they're going to attract wasps. Specifically for toddlers, if you're out, on a picnic or something like that, don't just clean their face and their hands when they're done eating. Think about changing their clothes, because if they've got food on their bib, or melted ice cream or something on their top, that'll continue to attract wasps. So maybe have a change of clothes handy for your toddlers. Another thing is if you're drinking anything from a can, right? So pop, or an adult wobbly pop or something, it's way safer to pour it into a glass, or even a sippy cup of some kind, something with a lid, because I've seen people who went to take a sip of their drink and didn't realize that a wasp had crawled into the can, and they get stung around the mouth or in the mouth, and that can be dangerous even if you're not allergic. Some people suggest putting out a little snack for the wasps, 10 or 15 feet away from where you're eating. Other people say that just attracts more wasps than you would have had in the first place. So I think kind of, location dependent or scenario dependent. So if you are going to put out a sugary snack, sugary snacks can attract bees as well. Whereas if you put out a protein snack, like your rib bones or something, you just move them to the other side of the table, that won't attract bees, but it'll attract wasps away from you. And then if a wasp does fly around you or land near you, don't freak out, don't flail around. Once it realizes that you're not sweet and sugary, it'll fly away. The other thing is they're not really strong flyers, so if it does land on you, instead of swatting it away, blow it away, just blow it off. If you make the wasp angry, if you swat it, then it figures it's getting attacked. It can release a chemical that attracts other wasps in the area to come help it out, which is not ideal.
Remind us what we should do if we do get stung.
Yeah, so you can have a quick look and make sure there's no stinger in there. Wasps do not leave a stinger in your skin, but that means they can sting you more than once. But if you have a stinger, then you were stung by a bee, you want to get the stinger out of there. Don't pinch it to pull it out, because if you do, you can squeeze it and that can release more venom into your skin. Scrape it off with, the edge of a credit card, a plastic knife, something like that. But yeah, so if there's no stinger, just check for that real quick. No stinger, ice it right away. That can help a lot, both in terms of the pain and the itching, and it helps to reduce the swelling. And don't just ice it once, just ice it frequently over the next few days. Bag of ice water or an ice pack from your cooler if you're camping, something like that. If you've got some antihistamine cream or pills, use those. We've talked about antihistamines before. The best options are the newer non-drowsy antihistamines like cetirizine, which is Reactine, or loratadine, which is Claritin, rather than diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl. Benadryl is really common, but it's older. It's got more side effects. It gets into your brain, makes you dopey. The newer ones are more effective and don't have as many side effects. And then the other thing is wash the sting area with soap and water. Maybe throw some antibiotic ointment on there as well, just to reduce the risk of it getting infected.
I guess when should somebody head to a doctor for a sting?
Yeah, so there's two main types of problems we see after wasp stings. So we see the immediate dangerous reactions in people who have severe allergies. So if you know you're anaphylactic to wasp stings, please call 911, use your EpiPen, head to the ER. right? Even if you've got antihistamine pills, you can take those, but antihistamines are not the first line treatment. It's the EpiPen and the 911. The antihistamines can help with some of the itching, but it's not going to help the dangerous drop in blood pressure if you have an anaphylactic allergy. The second kind of problem we see after stings, sometimes, a few hours, sometimes a few days later, is when the area gets more red and more swollen. And I've seen a lot of these this past weekend when I was working. But sometimes it's hard to sort out. Is this just your allergic reaction, your local reaction getting bigger? Or is it now an infected sting? Because you've been scratching it maybe, or, not washing it, or didn't have a chance to wash it or whatever. So it's tough to figure out sometimes. Is it more, the allergic reaction and you need more antihistamines, or is it infected and maybe you need antibiotics? So if you're not sure, then, and if you're concerned at all, it's always a good idea to get checked out by a doctor, just because it can be really hard to sort out what that is and what the best management for that is. But, ideally, we can avoid wasp stings and really enjoy what's left of the nice warm summer.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Bardwaj.
My pleasure.
That's our medical column with House Dr. Raj Bardwaj. Well, speaking of warm summer, we'll tell you about the forecast in a moment. Right now, at 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, let's return to our news center and get today's headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, as students fill up classes right across the province today, they won't have their cell phones with them. The province-wide cell phone ban is now in effect. Stephen Ross is superintendent in Western School Division that's based in Morden. He says if devices aren't relinquished, the student heads to the office and their parents will be contacted, and they'll have to work it out with their parents. A Manitoba designer is getting ready to see her designs on the runway for Paris Fashion Week. Alicia Sutherland, owner and designer of Ali Robinson's, didn't give too much away about the collection she's showing, but says it includes gowns with intense ribbon work, a lot of color, and a lot of textures and fabrics. We'll hear more about her in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, today is going to be warm. A mix of sun and cloud in Winnipeg. We do have a 30% chance we'll see some showers early this morning. Local smoke, widespread early this afternoon. Now, a high of 25 for Winnipeg. Right now, it's partly cloudy, 19. And speaking of smoke, the air quality, there is an advisory issued for Dauphin today because of that smoke. In traffic this morning, slow down in those school zones, watch for the little ones, and increase volumes of traffic of all kinds today, and make some space for the pedestrians, the bikes, the cars, all that mix. But call us if you see any problems. 788-3093. And that's for Winnipeg, but also wherever you happen to be in the province. Speaking of which, let's take you to Clear Lake for a moment. Remember this?
Let's walk out to the end of the dock so you can actually see the entire line here, Marcy. That curtain is now in place and it's secured to the shoreline there. And so if you look along the surface of Clear Lake, you see several hundred meters of curtain that's already in place.
So this was out in Clear Lake when CBC was there, and we were looking at the installation of the curtain on the lake that was supposed to help contain or prevent the spread of zebra mussels. That is Damien Wall, who speaks for Riding Mountain National Park. Well, as mentioned, that was July 30th. What's happened? We're going to get an update in the next hour from Bartley Kivas, who's going to be here with us live in studio, so stay tuned for that. Also, speaking of back to school, Jim Agapito is already in class. Well, at least he's in the hallway. We're going to hear from him. He's live in the next hour at a Cole Charleswood School this morning to hear more about the excitement there, and also from the superintendent about what the new school year is going to bring, and some more reaction to the cell phone ban, which is the big new thing, of course, as Heather was mentioning. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead as Information Radio continues right here on CBC. Thanks for making us part of your morning on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and World Report is next. Stay right here. 1 minute to 7.
Today on The Current.
I get heart sick and blue for New Brunswick and you.
A lot of people have been moving to New Brunswick in the last few years, something to celebrate, but also that has parents worried about overcrowded schools. And that's coming up on a special edition of The Current, live from Fredericton.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on demand on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The Bank of Canada is expected to cut its key lending rate again later this morning. That would make for a third consecutive cut from the central bank. Markets expect further cuts in October and December if economic growth continues to slow. Senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
After a quiet summer, it's not just traffic picking up again. The risks around the economy are accelerating too. Just last week, Canada's biggest banks released quarterly earnings. And once again, those banks squirreled away billions of dollars in case borrowers start to default on their loans. Jim Thorne, chief market strategist at Wellington Altus Private Wealth, says the banks are worried the economy may slow more than expected.
It's the canary in the coal mine that's saying, hey, listen, it's getting serious here. You cannot be gradual here anymore, Bank of Canada. You need to start accelerating your rate cuts.
Mere months ago, the primary concern was making sure inflation was under control. But even at the last interest rate decision, Bank Governor Tiff Macklem had clearly started to pivot to concerns about growth.
The downside risks are taking on increased weight in our monetary policy deliberations. We need growth to pick up so inflation does not fall too much.
Investors now believe the Bank of Canada will cut rates to 3.75% by the end of this year and as low as 3% by the middle of next year. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Ukraine's parliament has met, but lawmakers did not consider a resignation from one of the most recognizable faces in the country's war effort. Dmytro Kuleba offered to resign as foreign secretary. He was a key player in galvanizing Western support for Ukraine. Kuleba is one of several ministers handing in resignations ahead of an expected cabinet shakeup. And at the same time, Russia is launching more missiles on Ukrainian cities. The sound of gunfire ahead of an explosion in Lviv. At least 7 people are dead in this latest air attack. More than 30 people were injured. Russia launched 2 ballistic missiles yesterday in Poltava and central Ukraine. More than 50 people were killed and another 200 injured in that attack. In London,
we paid the price of systematic dishonesty, institutional indifference and neglect.
That is Natasha Alcock, a survivor of the Grenfell Tower fire. She's reacting to a report released this morning. 72 people were killed when a fire engulfed the high-rise in 2017. The report finds governments and fire officials all shared blame. Anna Cunningham has been following the story and joins us from London. And Anna, what are some of the conclusions from this report?
Well, I think there are 7 key takeaways in this, the headline being dishonesty and incompetence, really. The fingers being pointed at the manufacturers of cladding products, saying that that was by far the largest contributor to the fire. They were found to have engaged in systematic dishonesty and also used deliberate and sustained strategies, it says, to make their products appear safe. And also the companies that were involved in that refurbishment are described as being incompetent. It says that these were missed by governments from the early 1990s onwards, and it culminated in decades of failure. Now, specifically, it's pointing to the 2010 Conservative Liberal Democrat government, saying that they have been strongly criticised, that they focused on cutting. The inquiry chair was Sir Martin Moore-Bick, and this is what he had to say.
Those who lived in the tower were badly failed over a number of years and in a number of different ways by those who were responsible for ensuring the safety of the building and its occupants.
What changes are expected out of this report?
I think the main change that people will be looking to is the future of building such housing, questions about whether it's suitable even to house people in tall story blocks. This was 24 stories high. Certainly there will be change looked into in the London Fire Brigade's policy. We expect to hear more from the Prime Minister in the coming hours, and also reaction from the families of those who lived in that apartment building.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Anna Cunningham reporting in London. The Democratic Republic of Congo is expected to receive its first delivery of Mpox vaccines tomorrow. Congo is the epicenter of the current Mpox outbreak. Last month, the World Health Organization declared it a global public health emergency, but efforts to stop the spread have been stalled by a lack of vaccines. The U.S. election is 62 days away, and both campaigns are on the road today for the final sprint to the November 5th vote. Vice President Kamala Harris is in New Hampshire, where she's expected to unveil her latest economic policies, while former President Donald Trump is in Pennsylvania for a town hall hosted by Fox News. The CBC's Katie Nicholson joins me now from Washington. And Katie, Kamala Harris will be laying out her second wave of economic policies. What are we expecting?
Well, this is expected to be a pro-small business economic policy pitch aimed straight at that middle class. Two significant highlights. One, Harris is expected to pledge raising the amount of expenses that a small business can deduct in its first year. So that would be from $5,000 to $50,000. And in part, that's because the average business needs about $40,000 in its first year just to get off the ground. And two, Harris is also going to set a new goal. In August, the Biden administration announced 19 million new businesses started up during roughly the last 4 years. Harris wants to surpass that and make it 25 million new businesses. And Harris is also expected to pledge to remove some red tape for small business and propose changes to the banking system so that smaller regional banks can cover interest on loans to small businesses. And it's important to note here, there are roughly 33 million small businesses in the U.S. and 62 million are employed by small businesses. So that's a good chunk of voters that the campaign is trying to reach here.
Trump is in Harrisburg tonight for a town hall, and his court cases continue to make headlines. What's the latest there?
Yeah, so Donald Trump's bid to move that New York hush money case to federal court was quashed. Trump's team had tried to argue Judge Juan Merchan was biased against him, and they were unsuccessful. The former president was found guilty on all 34 counts, and sentencing is tentatively scheduled for September 18th, though Judge Merchan has not yet decided whether Trump should be sentenced before or after the election. And just one quick update on that newly revised election interference filing from special counsel Jack Smith in D.C. Trump is going to be pleading not guilty to charges that he attempted to overthrow the results of the 2020 election. No surprise there. That was his pleading on the original indictment. And of course, that's the one that Smith had to revise after the Supreme Court ruling earlier this year that gave Trump immunity from specific acts connected to the office of the president.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Katie Nicholson in Washington. A new mineral product is showing some promise for carbon capture. Farmers near Kingston, Ontario are using wollastonite on their crops. It is derived from ancient fossilized limestone. The approach is called enhanced rock weathering, and it replicates what already happens naturally. Farmers say it can also improve crop productivity. Stu Mills has more.
On a farm field outside of Kingston, a big green tractor tows a trailer spreading a fine white grit. While the diesel engine is emitting some CO2, and so did the equipment that loaded that bright white wollastonite mineral into the trailer, this operation will fight against global warming.
If I can say to somebody, we're doing our part to offset the problems that we create with CO2.
Farmer Charlie Foreman says the high levels of calcium and silicon spread onto his soybean fields will not only make the plants more disease resistant, but CO2 in the atmosphere will mix with rain that falls on the crushed minerals and will form compounds that capture carbon. Ultimately, enhanced rock weathering will let farmers pull a ton of carbon out of the atmosphere for every ton and a half of wollastonite they spread.
I feel good about that.
The man behind Canadian wollastonite is Bob Vassley. He says what's being done in eastern Ontario at his mine could be scaled up and replicated with other silicate rock deposits right across Canada.
The ability to incorporate farmers and farmland to capture millions of tons of carbon is unmatched.
At Queen's University, Environmental Policy Institute Director Warren Mabey says it shouldn't be treated as a silver bullet, but one approach in the decarbonizing toolbox.
We're not looking for a single solution, we're looking for many solutions.
Stu Mills, CBC News, Kingston.
And that is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, don't be afraid. That is the sound of a school bell ringing, but yours is probably not going to go off for another hour. You're going back. Welcome, everyone, to Information Radio on this Wednesday, September the 4th, the first day of school for many of Manitoba's 200,000 plus students and some 40 plus some divisions. This morning on the program, we're going to feel some of that excitement and nervousness and also talk about what's new. Jim Agapito's live at École Charleswood School in this hour to hear what the excitement's like there. He's actually going to talk to the superintendent as well. Remember, lots of new things in school, including that cell phone ban, which is the big headline. Also this hour on the program, some Manitoba cottagers have spent the summer wondering about something. Is Parks Canada going to be able to get rid of zebra mussels, or at the very least slow the contamination in Clear Lake? CBC was live there on August 1st. CBC's Bartley Kivas has an update this hour on what has happened. We were there as that curtain mitigation effort was being installed on the lake. So Bartley's got an update for us about the latest. So that's coming up right before 8. Right now, though, 7:11, let's go to Heather Wells to find out what's going on with the news headlines. Hi, Heather.
Good morning. Well, one thing Manitoba students won't be taking back to class with them this morning is their cell phone. A ban now in effect. The rules set out by the province prohibit kindergarten to grade 8 students from using phones during school hours. Students in grades 9 to 12 can only use their cell phones during lunch and other breaks. Alain Leberge is superintendent at Division Scolaire Franco-Manitobain. They have piloted a similar ban for the past year, and he says students became more involved in their studies. We're going to head to a school this morning. We're going to bring you that report live with CBC's Megan Ketchison, and that's coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's get into the weather forecast. Abby is here to talk about it. Hi.
Across board, we are looking at a mix of sun and clouds today with some smoke. We'll be feeling that sometime in the afternoon. We'll see highs ranging from 9 to 26. Currently, Winnipeg, 19 at this time. We'll see a mix of sun and clouds today. There's a slight chance of showers in the forecast sometime this morning, and we will get to a high of 25. In other regions, Thompson is seeing some light drizzle at this time. Cloudy in Churchill, still smoky and misty in Dauphin, and the rest of the southern region hovering between 17 and 19. So in a nutshell, it's just a mix of sun and clouds and some smokes, and we'll see highs of 20s.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into the morning commute, which will be busy today. Chloe Friesen.
Good morning. Yeah, so far no issues, which is great news for a back-to-school commute for many, many Manitobans. Just a reminder of those school zones back in effect, so 30 kilometers an hour in those areas. Make sure you're keeping it slow and just keeping an eye out because those crosswalks are going to be busy, those sidewalks are going to be busy. Yeah, very excited for back to school for many people. If there is something that is getting in your way on your commute, you can let us know by calling our commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, we asked you this morning to weigh in and write to us at CBC on our Facebook page, which is my Marcy Marcusa page during the show. We asked what's your message to students for back to school. We've already got some great comments coming in here. So JJ Harrer, we're saying get a trade. Whitney Hodgins writing in, new university students, read the syllabus. Nikki Bruce saying, welcome to your cellular detox era. Quite right. And finally, Jacqueline Rayner saying, don't be mean. So folks writing in with their advice for back to school. There's hustle, there's bustle, there's nerves, there's excitement. It all gets started this morning. So most kids in the province, as we've told you, do head back to school. Every year, we like to head to a school ourselves to see how educators and students are feeling this morning. This morning, CBC's Jim Agapito is out live at École Charleswood School in Winnipeg. It's a dual-track school, so they have French immersion for students grades 5 to 8 and an English program for students in grades 6 to 8. And I can see on YouTube that Jim's standing in the hallway, so I know you're there, Jim. What's it feeling like before the rush comes?
Well, Marcy, there's a certain excitement in the air right now. You know, it's still quiet, but, you know, teachers are trickling in and, you know, soon the halls will be flooded with hundreds of students just getting ready for that first day of school. But right now, I have someone special with me, the superintendent of the Pembina Trail School Division, Shelley Amos. Hi, Shelley.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me this morning.
So Shelley, I want to ask, you know, new school, new superintendent, first day of school, what's going through your mind right now?
Well, it's a busy time, of course. People have been working really, really hard to get ready for this day. So we're really looking forward to welcoming our students, opening our doors. As you can see, our hallways are clean, our floors and walls are shiny, and we're just ready and waiting for kids to come. It's very exciting.
You know, this time of year can always be a little nerve-wracking for students. What do you say to them, to make them feel at ease?
Well, we're welcoming them. We're waiting for them to come. We know it's a transition from being at home in summer to coming back to school, but there's so much joy and opportunity at school and friendships to be made and fun activities and learning to happen and teachers who love them. So we'll help them. If anyone's nervous, we'll help them feel comfortable.
Mental health is always a big concern at the beginning of a new school year. I'm wondering, how will schools be addressing some of those problems?
Well, thankfully, our schools are pretty adept at working with students and families, and we know there's been challenges the last few years in particular, and we have school counselors and divisional social workers and psychologists, as well as our teachers here, who are ready and waiting to help any student or family who feels they need some support.
Now, cell phones are going to be a new thing. It's going to be a ban here in the province. I'm wondering, how will, you be implementing, some of those guidelines outlined by the province?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I knew you would ask that question today. So that was a directive, obviously, that came from the Minister of Education. And we feel it's a good opportunity. For grade 9 to 12, there's not going to be a lot of substantive change. The biggest change is no phones in classrooms unless they're directed by teachers for educational purposes. For K to 8, we prefer that students leave their devices at home, but if they do need to bring them for walking to and from for safety, or there's some medical reasons, then we ask parents to work that out with the school, and we're happy to support how we need to support that way.
As a new superintendent, what are some of the issues? What are some of the things that you'd like to, tackle this year, Shelley?
Well, that's a big question. Number one, this is a big school division, so I have 36 schools and all the staff that come along with that. So learning and listening how things go in Pembina Trails and how we want things to go in the future would be top of mind. We know that we're the fastest growing community in Winnipeg, or one of them, and we have some space challenges, and so that's a big thing for us to continue to work towards.
By the end of the day, Shelley, how do you want the kids to feel?
I really want every child to feel loved at school when they come to school, and welcomed and belonging. Belonging is probably the biggest word for me, so I want them to have had a good day. I want them to have connected with adults and with students and friends, and I really want them to go home feeling tired and exhausted and ready to come back the next day.
Now, Shelley, you yourself have been involved in education for a long time. First day of school, being in a school, what are some of your first memories?
Yeah, it brings back the sights and sounds and smells of your own experience going to school and the rush of the feeling on the first day. Of course, me being a teacher all these years, the first day I'm giddy over that first day, right? And everything's crisp and clean and fresh, smiley faces full of curiosity. And so I can hardly wait for halls to be filled with energy and noise and laughter.
I've asked you about advice you would give to kids, but what would you give to teachers? First day, some new teachers out there, what would you say to them?
Teaching is the best profession there is, in my opinion, and it's hard work, but it's wonderful work with a lot of satisfaction. And teachers work hard, so I wish them all the best as they get to know their new students for the school year.
All right, how excited are you right now?
You can see the twinkle in my eye. I'm really excited for the start of the year.
Thanks, Shelley. That was Shelley Amos, the new superintendent and CEO of Pembina Trails School Division. Back to you, Marcy.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Shelley. So Jim's live this morning at the school, and we appreciate everyone doing this with us on such a busy morning. Of course, Ecole Charleswood School in Winnipeg. You probably saw him in the hallway there with Shelley standing at the school live. Now, in the next hour, Jim's going to be connecting with some families and some parents and teachers. 7:19 is the time you're on CBC. It's 19 degrees, by the way, this morning. Well, Shelley was talking about the energy and the joy and the laughter of back to school, but let's turn to another emotion. That is at school. What about if you're at home? Get out the Kleenex, everyone, because if you have a little one going home or to school this morning and they've been in your house, right, for all their life, and then you have to let them go, that's really hard. Or maybe you're an empty nester for the first time. So we're going to acknowledge that in song. Now, this song actually is making a bit of a resurgence right now on TikTok, but it is an old tune from ABBA called Slipping Through My Fingers.
School bag in hand, she leaves home in the early morning, waving goodbye with an absent-minded smile. I watch her go with a surge of that well-known sadness, and I have to sit down for a while. The feeling that I'm losing her forever, and without really entering the world, I'm glad whenever I can share her laughter, that funny little girl. Slipping through my fingers all the time, I try to capture every minute, the feeling in it. Slipping through my fingers all the time. Do I really see what's in her mind? Each time I think I'm close to knowing, she keeps on growing. Slipping through my fingers all the time. Sleep in our eyes, stirring me at the breakfast table. Barely awake, I let precious time go by. And when she's gone, there's that odd melancholy feeling and the sense of guilt I can't deny. What happened to the wonderful adventures? The places I had planned for us to go. Well, some of that we did, but most we didn't. And why, I just don't know. Slipping through my fingers all the time, I try to capture every minute, the feeling in it. Slipping through my fingers all the time. Do I really see what's in her mind? Each time I think I'm close to knowing, she keeps on growing. Slipping through my fingers all the time. Sometimes I wish that I could freeze the picture and save it from the funny tricks of time. Slipping through my school bag in hand, she leaves home in the early morning, waving goodbye with an absent-minded smile.
Enough said, right, parents? School day number 2 as school gets back at it, and students are back in class today across Manitoba.
There are two kinds of stunts in Hollywood, the ones inside a film and the publicity stunts outside them, like the hungry lion in a hotel room booked by Mr. T.R. Zan, or the undergarments thrown at a hunky Welshman.
It's not unusual to find out.
Lions, panties, and hotel keys, Hollywood publicity stunts on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. and on the CBC Listen app.
7:25 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcuso. You are listening to CBC, and the sky looks like almost like ombre this morning. There's some yellow and some pink in it, and it looks like a nice morning to be getting back to school here. You might want to pack an umbrella, extra jacket. There's just a 30% chance we could see some still early morning showers. Our high today for the first day is at 25 in Winnipeg, and it's 19 right now. I do want to mention Thompson because you're at 10 degrees right now. You're only going to get to 13 degrees today for a high, so it's going to be a little bit cool for back to school for you up in Thompson. Well, let's take us to Paris actually next, because we've been following what's going on in the Paralympics, and Scott Reguer, as you can hear, is with us. Hi there.
Hey there, Marcy.
So another gold for Canada this morning. What can you tell us?
Well, it came in shot put, courtesy of Kamloops, BC's Greg Stewart. His best throw today, Marcy, not as long as the one that helped him win gold at the last games in Tokyo, but a 16.38-meter toss this morning was still enough to repeat as a Paralympic champion. Stewart, who is 7'2" and bears a very strong likeness to the actor Charles C. Riley, one of the more thoughtful athletes you'll ever meet. After his success in Tokyo, he actually retired from the sport for a while, citing his mental health. And even after winning gold today, it's pretty clear that Stewart views this medal largely as a relief.
So I was so scared. I had so much fear around failure the last 2 days, and especially around failing for other people. I was scared I was going to let down my team, my family, everything like that. It was brutal. Once I got here, then it's like, okay, we're here. Let's have fun. I don't have to worry about stuff anymore. Our emotions are very real, and the last 2 days sucked. But I'm very grateful that I can stand here and show that we can get through it and have fun in the process.
How honest is that? Shot putter and now two-time Paralympic champion Greg Stewart. Canada now with 15 medals, Marcy, in total, and on pace for its most podium finishes at a Paralympics since 2012 in London.
He kind of does look like, are you talking about John C. Riley, right?
Did I say Charles?
You did say Charles.
No, I meant John C. Riley.
And then I Google imaged, and the really, old American actor and comedian came up.
Yeah. That's 7'2", mind you, but there you
are. You mentioned Greg Stewart as well, though, is over 7 feet, like you said, 7'2" to be exact. Being tall and being in the Olympic Village in Paris, apparently not a good match.
No, Iran's sitting volleyball player Morteza Merzad, Marcy, unfortunately knows all about that. Merzad is 8'1". He's believed to be the world's second tallest person, but has no place to sleep in the village. The beds are not big enough to accommodate him. So instead, Merzad has been sleeping on the floor in the gymnasium where he's been competing. Iran's sitting volleyball team, by the way, is considered the dream team of the sport. I think they've never gone lower than a silver medal and usually win gold at the Paralympics. And this is their best player. His coach, Hadi Rezai, told reporters that at previous games, including Tokyo, organizers made a special bed for his athlete, but that has not been the case in Paris. And this is not the first complaint, not by a stretch, about the athletes' village in the French capital. Earlier this summer at the Olympics, athletes decried, among other things, the cramped quarters, the beds made out of cardboard, and the lack of essential supplies like toilet paper. I know the swimming champion from Australia, Ariane Titmus, went as far as to say that they were, quote unquote, living in filth in Paris. So obviously not good.
Why would they, if they had precedent to make the bed before,
exactly.
Who decided this time, no, sleep in the gym on the floor? You work your life in years to get to these games. Anyway.
Exactly.
Let's finish on a lighter note, Scott, shall we? Although competitors in our next story know little about the term lighter.
New world record holder, it's Joey Chestnut!
Little change of tone here. In the long-awaited rematch between competitive eating legends Joey Chestnut and Takeru Kobayashi, Chestnut won going away, smashing his own personal record, consuming 83 hot dogs in 10 minutes, which is 17 more than Kobayashi managed. After the competition, which Netflix dubbed the unfinished beef, Chestnut lauded his rival.
I've been trying to hit 80 hot dogs for years, and without Kobayashi, I was never able to do it. We weren't always nice to each other, but I love what he did. We push each other and make our best. When I first heard the rules about no dunking, I was really worried. But then I learned how to eat them like this, and if I any other hot dog contest I do, I'm going to be eating some of them without dunking. This was amazing.
Dunking, the practice of dipping the bunned hot dogs in water to make everything go down that much smoother.
That was my sound effect.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Time for some cereal and skim milk, no?
Oh, man. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, I think, right? You're welcome.
Talk to you tomorrow. Maybe you got a hot dog in your lunch today. Don't eat that many, though. Coming up next, it is your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 19 degrees. It's going to be a gorgeous day for being outside, maybe barbecuing some of those hot dogs. We will see some local smoke this morning and becoming widespread smoke by early this afternoon. Bit of a northwest breeze, keeping us slightly cooler than yesterday, a high today of 25. Well, say goodbye to that relaxed summer pace. Most students across Manitoba are up early, grabbing their backpacks and heading back to school. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is out at École Stanley Knowles this morning and joins us live. Megan?
Well, just moments ago, I saw a school bus actually traveling by, heading out to pick up some of those students getting ready to go to school this year. There's a bit of a buzz in the school as the custodial staff getting things ready. The teachers here, I was speaking with Principal Andrea Powell. She says it's an incredibly exciting day, that first day of school. Lots of jitters. Kids are excited. Lots of changes for this year. Now, one of the changes, of course, that we've been talking about is the cell phone ban that's going into place across Manitoba. Here at Stanley Knoll, apparently they warned parents back in June that kids in the K-8 school were not going to be allowed to bring their phones to school. They're preparing. They've got games ready for lunch hour and breaks so that they don't have to worry about the kids twiddling their thumbs. Now, another change for this year is this is the first school in the Winnipeg School Division to have a Punjabi immersion class. They've got 20 kids in that are enrolled in that, and they will be doing all of their learning from kindergarten to grade 2 in Punjabi. So again, lots of changes here at Stanley Knowles, and we are just anticipating the kids to start rolling in about an hour. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Now, Megan talked about that cell phone ban, prohibiting all cell phones from all K-12 classrooms. What if students break the ban? Stephen Ross is superintendent at the Western School Division in Morden. He says their recently revised policy aims to avoid confrontations between staff and students.
Ask for the device to be relinquished, and if devices are not relinquished, then those kids will be dealt with at the office, and the office will contact parents, and they will work that out with the family.
Ross hopes the new rules can help students become more focused in class. A curtain installed below the surface of Clear Lake to isolate zebra mussels was only in place for 2 days. Parks Canada says that curtain was dislodged by high winds. Now Parks is working with a contractor to try to push the curtain back into place. Damien Wall speaks for Riding Mountain National Park.
What we're looking at here is the biggest known deployment of a piece of material like this for the battle against zebra mussels.
Cottagers at Clear Lake say they're disappointed Parks Canada took so long to install the curtain in the first place. Highly invasive zebra mussels were first found in the lake last November. We'll have more on this story with Bartley Kivas, our reporter, coming up in the next half hour right here on Information Radio. The Bank of Canada is expected to announce another rate cut this morning. The central bank already cut its key lending rate in June and July, but economists say further cuts are needed. Jim Thorne is chief market strategist at Wellington Altus Private Health.
Hey, listen, it's getting serious here. You cannot be gradual here anymore, Bank of Canada. You need to start accelerating your rate cuts.
The central bank's overnight lending rate is now at 4.5%. Economists predict it could fall to as low as 3% by the middle of next year. Canada's canola farmers are bracing for China's next move after Beijing announced it is investigating canola imports from Canada. The news comes after Canada announced tariffs on electric vehicles from China. Jennifer Dolman is a canola farmer in Ontario.
This isn't the first trade barrier that we've had to face in farming. We don't get into it for the great hours, the great pay, but this is, just one more pothole on the road. It's definitely going to have a major impact, possibly more so for my Western counterparts than for myself in Ontario, because we thankfully have 3 crushers in Eastern Canada.
The canola produced in eastern Canada is typically crushed in this country and then sent across the Atlantic. The canola in western Canada is often sent to China unprocessed. A Manitoba designer is heading to Paris Fashion Week later this month. Alicia Sutherland, owner and designer of Ali's Ribbons, lives in Winnipeg now, but originally is from Peguis First Nation. Sutherland says the designs she'll showcase in Paris feature intense ribbon work, along with a lot of different colors and textures. This is the latest opportunity for Sutherland to showcase her work internationally. Last year, her pieces were featured in Cannes and in New York. Before heading to Paris, she'll be in San Diego for a fashion show there.
It's a very overwhelming feeling because having the opportunity to go, I never thought I would even get to these global stages.
Sutherland showcases her collection in Paris on September 27th, and you can see more of this fashion, all her work, on our website this morning, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
And coming up, actually, momentarily, we're going to have more of the story, too. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
It is 7:35 a.m. on this first day back in class for students. Abby, I just want to read a few more comments before we get into your forecast.
Please do.
So as you know, Abby, we've been asking what's your message to students for back to school. So a couple new ones coming in. I love these. Amanda LaRuchatel says, join an extracurricular activity. The drama crowd was my home in high school. It gave me both fun but also friendship. Luke Neufeld, Luke sounds like a teacher. I don't know if Luke Neufeld's a teacher, but Luke posted a meme of this guy from The Office, and it says, if whenever I'm about to do something, it says, if I see and I ask myself, would an idiot do that thing? And if the answer is yes, I do not do that thing. So that is his message to students. And finally, Chintan Patel writing into us at CBC this morning, try your best. Everyone is different, so don't worry about grades too much. Lots of university and school dropouts are billionaires, and some university toppers are their CEOs. Ask for help, though, and don't worry if you fail. Make good friends and be good. So lots of messages coming in for back to school, and even some pictures of your first day duds. So love to see those outfits too. That's on my Facebook page. You can also call the listener line 788-3205. All right. So how should people dress? What's the weather today?
It's going to be a mix of sun and clouds today. We're going to see some widespread smoke rolling into most of the regions, and then breezy conditions would also aid that. A chance of showers and thunderstorm expected in some areas. Winnipeg currently 19, mostly cloudy at this time. We will see the sun and the clouds go back and forth throughout the day. We have a slight chance of showers this morning, and that widespread smoke I talked about will be developing as we get into the afternoon period. We'll see some breezy conditions from the northwest. Our highs would get to 25, but for tonight it's going to deep to 9, so we're going to have some cool weather later in the evening. Brandon is currently at 17 degrees and mostly cloudy at this time. This cloudy condition is going to be clearing as you get through the morning, though some local smoke will be rolling in. That would linger all through the afternoon and through the day. Expect a high of 25 and breezy conditions easing later tonight. Moving north to Thompson, we're seeing a light drizzle at this time. 10 degrees is the current temp at that area. Today we'll see mainly cloudy conditions. A slight chance of showers this morning, and the high will be around 13. Further north in Churchill, cloudy at 6. Expect some clearing as you get into the morning with breezy conditions from the northwest. Your highs would only get to 9 degrees for tonight. And then for tonight, the temperature is going to be deep into 1. So it's going to be a chilly evening for folks in Churchill. Dauphin is sitting at 13 degrees and misty at this time. We have that air quality advisory in effect due to smoke you're experiencing, and this smoke will stay with you for the most of the day. Some breezy conditions will also be felt. We'll see the highs near 24. There's a chance of showers tonight in the forecast. Gimli sitting at 19 and partly cloudy at this time. For folks in the Interlake region, expect a mix of sun and clouds. Local smoke becoming more widespread this afternoon, and you see highs around 25. Steinbach also similar condition at 19. 19. Expect a mix of sun and clouds. A slim chance of showers this morning. Smoke will develop later. Breezy conditions, high 25. Morris, same conditions. Cloudy sky, 18 degrees. You see a mix of sun and clouds, high 26. So across board, we're just going to be seeing a mix of sun and clouds today. Some smoke moving in this afternoon. Tonight becoming partly cloudy with cooler temperatures. And we will see highs hovering between 20s all the way to 26.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
And now for the morning commute on this busy first day back. Chloe Friesen's in with some details.
Good morning. A couple calls have come in on the commuter line. Thank you to Natasha for calling. Northbound Lashmodier between Fermor and Sage Creek. It's already slow moving due to construction on Lage. It's down to one lane for a long stretch there. So northbound Lage might be pretty slow moving between Fermor and Sage Creek as you are on your commute today. So if that is part of your commute, you might want to head out a little early. Keith also called to say that there is a stall in the intersection of northbound Keewatin at Inkster. So it's in the intersection, blocking a few different lanes there, no matter kind of what direction you're heading. So Keewatin and Inkster, just be aware of that. People can move around, but things were starting to slow down a bit. So thank you, Keith, for that call. If there's anything you want to add to that list, you can let us know. A reminder, it's back to school, so just keep your eye out for extra commuters today. The number to call if you see something is 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you, Chloe. Well, as we were just hearing in the news, an artist from Peguis First Nation will make her way to Paris for Fashion Week later this month. Let's hear more from Alicia Sutherland, who is Anishinaabe Dakota, owner and designer for Allie's Ribbons. Last year, as Heather was mentioning, some of her pieces were already featured on the red carpet events like Cannes and so on. Now she's representing at one of the biggest events in the fashion industry at Fashion Week. She recently spoke with CBC's Alana Cole about how she got her big break.
So it all started December of 2022. I decided to submit application to showcase for Cannes, France. I submitted to an Indigenous company like I'll be able to go with, and they said that they really loved my work. Even though I don't have any shows under my belt, they still want to bring me to Cannes, France to showcase. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I started fundraising for that. And then when I was in Cannes, they invited me to New York. When I was in New York, I created a good relationship with High Tech Moda. After New York, they asked me to attend Paris with them because I did a really good job in New York. And I said, this is pretty scary. You know, if opportunities come, I always say, like, then I'm ready for it. So I got the acceptance letter for Paris. I started fundraising, and then it all led to now, which I'm overwhelmed and nervous for.
High Tech Moda, what kind of company are they?
They're a company that puts on the show for designers. Yeah, so a lot of designers get invited, a lot of designers pay to be in their show. So I'm going to be showcasing in front of the French embassy over there in Paris as a private event. Only 6 looks, that's totally fine. And then I'll be going straight to High Tech Moda for 6 o'clock and showcasing globally there.
And how many designs are going to be in that show?
I'm going to be showcasing 11 items.
So I know you can't tell us exactly what you're going to be showing, but what are you comfortable sharing about the designs that you will be showcasing during Paris Fashion Week?
A lot of the designs I'll be showcasing is very intense ribbon work, I would say. I like to step outside the box with creativity on that. A lot of color, a lot of different types of textures and fabrics that are going to be combined into one gown. It's hopefully going to make a really big impression. Like I don't know who I'm going to see there, and hopefully that this is going to be big enough for hopefully a magazine. I don't know which one, but anyone. And then it just went up from there. Like we started fundraising, we started doing little shows to promote that we're going. A lot of people were reaching out and donating. A lot of sponsorships come through, and we were able to get this whole thing paid off within 2 months of finding out we were going. It's a very overwhelming feeling because having the opportunity to go, I never thought I would even get to these global stages. Indigenous fashion is blowing up, and it's overwhelming that I'm a part of it, you know? So I can't describe.
What do your designs mean to you? And what do you want people to see and understand and feel from your designs?
Designing ribbon work, you have to have a good mind, body, and spirit when you do these things. I like to sit down and I like to smudge and I like to call upon my grandmothers and my grandfathers and all that stuff and help guide me into bringing that good energy into there. Because when I first started sewing, my mother-in-law, she said to me, when you start something, you always start it off with a smudge, because what you're going to do is call upon the grandmothers and grandfathers to help guide you. Whatever you don't know, that it will come to you. And I said, okay. So when I was laying down my first ribbon and doing all this stuff with my first skirt, it was like a fire lit within me. I started seeing myself wearing the skirt, going to the ceremonies, being so proud and empowerment, and letting everyone know that I'm an Indigenous woman. You know, I'm Dakota, I'm Ojibwe, you know, I'm Treaty 1, I'm from Peguas First Nation. That was the most proudest moment I did when I started laying my first ribbon. And I was like, okay, I love this, you know. Can I do more? So I started playing with designs like fabrics, ribbon colors, textures, and it just blew up within me. And I was like, I love this. I want other people to do this. I want people to walk into a room and feel like they're the most beautifulest person in the world.
Lovely sentiment and beautiful designs. I love radio, folks, but I really hope you go to our website and you are watching on YouTube to see some of these gorgeous creations from Alicia Sutherland. In conversation there with CBC's Alana Cool. Alicia is the Anishinaabe Dakota owner and designer for Ali's Ribbons. She's from Peguas First Nation, and as you heard there, she's going to make her way to Paris for Fashion Week later this month. Time right now is 7:47 on this first day of school, and we have music from Canadian artist Maddie Ritter. This song is kind of a tribute to the classic love songs of the 70s and 80s about all the intense feelings that come with those early days of falling in love. Maybe you'll have a school romance this year. This tune's called Can You Feel It? Music from Maddie Ritter, and Can You Feel It? It is 12 minutes to 8 o'clock on this first day back at school. and you're listening to CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube this morning. Quick reminder, there is an air quality advisory in Dauphin this morning, so take it easy if you're in that area. In Winnipeg, it's mostly cloudy. It's 19 degrees. We are expecting also widespread and local smoke could be an issue for us this morning. You can kind of see that in the color of the sky as the sun was coming up. But our high today in the city of Winnipeg is going to be 25 degrees. Well, up next on the show, let's take you back to July 30th. Information Radio was live in Clear Lake, and this was going on.
Let's walk out to the end of the dock so you can actually see the entire line here, Marcy. That curtain is now in place and it's secured to the shoreline there. And so if you look along the surface of Clear Lake, you see several hundred meters of curtain that's already in place.
Damien Wall for Riding Mountain National Park there showing me the start of the installation of a curtain. This, of course, was supposed to help in the fight against zebra mussels. But did Parks Canada miss its chance to slow or even stop the spread of the invasive species in Clear Lake? What's happened since that installation? What went on the rest of the summer? Well, some cottagers certainly think that Parks Canada did miss the boat on this. In July, the federal agency hired a contractor to create this curtain, as you heard there, that would isolate an area of the lake where zebra mussels were first found last fall. Now, that curtain was only in place, it turns out, for 2 days. CBC reporter Bartley Kivas joins us now with an update. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what happened to the curtain?
Well, it didn't fully close. I mean, everyone's got a house with a curtain. It's a little bit janky, doesn't really close, but no, the curtain is in place because back in November 2023, zebra mussels were found, a clump of zebra mussels, adult live mussels were found by divers in the Boat Cove area. And if you know Clear Lake and Wasagaming, that's just west of the Wasagaming beachfront and the town site. And another live adult zebra mussel was found on July 17th. Now, Parks Canada was already in the process of getting a contractor to put this curtain in place, and it didn't actually, although Damien Wall said back in July it was starting to be put in place, they didn't actually finish this until the 6th of August, and then wind blew it off 2 days later. Damien Wall speaks for Riding Mountain National Park.
It started being assembled on the 29th of July. Some progress was made through that week and the week following. It was fully in the water on the 6th of August and ready for the final sort of deployment of that when we found at that time, just before it was completely deployed, that wind was pushing it in. So by the 8th of August, that curtain had moved out of where it was supposed to stay in the lake, was no longer containing the water in an area where we were trying to keep it contained. And so since that time, we've been working with the company that did the installation to find solutions on that.
What are some of the concerns, Bartley, about the way that the infestation of zebra mussels has been handled by Parks Canada?
Well, I want to back this up again. Zebra mussels being contained, and they're being contained so that the idea is potash can be applied to kill the zebra mussels there and possibly rid the lake of zebra mussels. Let us be entirely clear. This has not been successful in any large lake, to my knowledge, anywhere. This has been successfully done in only a couple places. We'll talk more about that later. This is a very, it's kind of a last-ditch thing. You go back to Lake Winnipeg when zebra mussels were found, much larger lake than Clear Lake. The province of Manitoba tried to isolate some harbors, did potash. It was a faint hope. Hail Mary throw, probably chances are less than a Hail Mary throw. That said, cottagers were told that, and people were told, Manitobans were told that Parks Canada was trying to do something with this. So cottagers have said, both in a statement from a cabin owners association that represents people who have cabins around, cottages around Clear Lake, and that they are upset with the communication. They followed all the rules, and they educated visitors about trying to follow the rules against aquatic invasive species introductions, and as well reported violations, and yet they're not getting the communication here. And they're also a little bit upset about how long it took to get there. Kyle Baslow is a cottage owner at Clear Lake.
Did they do it the best way? I don't think so. I've talked to other people's, engineers, that the amount of anchoring and weight on this wasn't nearly enough for it to withhold any amount of wind, and sure enough, within a week, the curtain blew in. So the curtain is utterly useless and a waste of money.
What concerns specifically, Bartley, do people have about the way the curtain was constructed then?
Well, you just heard Kyle Baslow say that he didn't think it was done properly, but let's be clear. This is not an easy thing to do to construct an underwater curtain weighted down an irregular shaped lake. This is, according to Damien Wall, the largest ever application of this particular technology anywhere in North America to attempt to do that. The bigger picture here is the concerns is the time it sort of took, given that divers first found this in November. But let's be clear, let's not give people, and I've said this before on another show here, let's not give people the false impression this is an easy thing to do. Oh, you surround the area where you think the zebra mussels are, you apply the potash and they're gone. This hasn't been done in a whole ecosystem, natural body of water. There are a number of ways to try to control zebra mussels, but the success has typically been in much smaller bodies of water.
So let me ask you this, because I asked this question when we were in Clear Lake as well. Given that the mussels were found, zebra mussels, in Boat Cove 9 months ago, and then our questions then were like, if we knew sort of last fall this was a problem, and why are we taking measures now? Now where we're at right now in September, what's at stake if officials are not able to get this under some kind of control by fall or winter, or is that sort of a fallacy anyway, the idea of zebra mussels being controlled in your view?
Okay, I'll deal with the second part later.
Yeah.
The first part is zebra mussels, like most invertebrates in Manitoba, are most active in the warmer time of the year. If they're going to reproduce, they're going to reproduce and grow more quickly in the summer. So the summer is sort of the window to do this. That's the first concern. But your second point is correct. Like, how do we know that the little veligers, the little larvae, the little wormy-like things that are free-flowing aren't throughout the lake? They haven't found them elsewhere in the lake, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Typically, what's at stake here is if Clear Lake ends up with zebra mussels, and zebra mussels will be in the river that goes downstream into the Assiniboine River. But, the Red River already has zebra mussels, and zebra mussels could be slowly making their way up the Assiniboine regardless. So aquatic invasive species such as this have been spreading across North America.
Can you give us an example of somewhere that was able to eradicate zebra mussels successfully? We did an interview on the show with a place in the States, but the body of water was very different than Clear Lake and, of course, different than Lake Winnipeg. But what's on your list?
According to Invasive Mussel Collaborative, which is an organization representing states and provinces and indigenous nations and other public bodies that look at various aspects of science, the application of potash successfully removed zebra mussels from a quarry in Virginia, and several isolated harbors in a very small lake in the southwestern suburbs of Minneapolis.
So different bodies of water.
Much
for lots
smaller,
of reasons.
not as natural. And there's other ways to control zebra mussels. There's other chemicals and compounds and biologicals that can be used, but Clear Lake is in a national park. You can't just go in and apply all kinds of molluscicides to kill broad spectrums of the ecosystem in there. Parks Canada would be very potash control in a specific harbor. Can't just take that entire lake and dump stuff into it and hope to kill everything to create a pristine environment that has no life in it.
So Heather's standing by with headlines. Quick word on what happens next.
What happens next is Parks Canada says they're still trying. They're still going to try to control, to get that area isolated, get that curtain working, and then apply the potash. And you know what? It is a relatively cold lake compared to Lake Winnipeg. Maybe they will be successful. Just because it hasn't been done, perhaps doesn't mean it can't be done.
All right, Bartley, thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Bartley Kivas with an update on Clear Lake and the issue with zebra mussels and the attempts being made to try and mitigate what's been found in the lake already. If you want to read more of the story, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And here is Heather with headlines.
Good morning. Well, as students fill up classes across the province today, they won't have their cell phones on them. A province-wide cell phone ban now is in effect. Stephen Ross at the Western School Division based in Morden says if devices are not relinquished, the students will head right to the office where their parents will be contacted. And a Manitoba designer is getting ready to see her designs on the runway for Paris Fashion Week. Alicia Sutherland, owner and designer of Allie's Ribbons, isn't giving a lot away about her collections, but she does say it includes gowns with intense ribbon work. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In Winnipeg, 19 for the first day back, mostly cloudy and a high of 25 in Winnipeg today. On the morning commute, commute. We do have a couple of spots that you want to avoid. You can check out traffic management. You can also check out what's happening as well on our YouTube stream. cbc.ca/Manitoba is our website. Still ahead, we're going to get you back out for back to school. Jim Agapito is live in Charleswood to catch all the excitement and all the nervousness. Stay with us.
Today on Q. I'm Vivek Shreyas sitting in for Tom Power. As a founding member of legendary rap crew Wu-Tang Clan, producer RZA changed hip-hop with his ear for experimentation. He'll talk to Tom Power about his first album of orchestral music, A Ballet Through Mud.
And then I called the orchestra and said, hey, guys, how much is it going to cost me to record this thing?
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A lot of people have been moving to New Brunswick in the last few years, something to celebrate, but also that has parents worried about overcrowded schools. And that's coming up on a special edition of The Current, live from Fredericton.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Russia launched another air attack, this time in western Ukraine. A building burns in the city of Lviv. At least 7 people have been killed. The city's mayor says a child and medical worker are among the dead. This happened just before Ukraine's president vowed to bring new energy to his government. Volodymyr Zelensky speaks about his cabinet shuffle at a news conference in Kyiv. Ukraine's parliament accepted the resignation of several ministers today, but it did not consider that of Dmytro Kuleba. The foreign secretary has been a key player in galvanizing Western support for Ukraine. He offered to step away from his role earlier today. To London.
The country failed to discharge its most fundamental duty, to protect you and your loved ones.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer apologizes for failings that led to the fatal fire at the Grenfell Tower. 72 people were killed when flames ran through the high-rise in 2017. The final report into what happened blames governments and manufacturers for hiding safety concerns and cutting costs. Anna Cunningham has been following this story and joins us from London. Anna, what are some of the conclusions from this report?
Well, I think there are 7 key takeaways in this, the headline being dishonesty and incompetence, really. The fingers being pointed at the manufacturers of cladding products, saying that that was by far the largest contributor to the fire. They were found to have engaged in systematic dishonesty and also used deliberate and sustained strategies, it says, to make their products appear safe. And also the companies that were involved in that refurbishment are described as being incompetent, and it culminated in decades of failure. Now, specifically, it's pointing to the 2010 Conservative Liberal Democrat government, saying that they have been strongly criticised, that they focused on cutting. The inquiry chair was Martin Moore-Bick, and this is what he had to say.
Those who lived in the tower were badly failed over a number of years and in a number of different ways by those who were responsible for ensuring the safety of the building and its occupants.
What changes are expected out of this report?
I think the main change that people will be looking to is the future of building such housing, questions about whether it's suitable even to house people in tall story blocks. This was 24 stories high. Really what people are desperately now seeking is criminal prosecutions. Those are at least 18 months away.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Anna Cunningham, reporting in London. The U.S. Justice Department has laid terrorism charges against 6 senior leaders of Hamas. The charges are in connection with the October 7th attack in Israel. Leader Yahya Sinwar is among those facing charges for providing support to Hamas, a group the U.S. has designated a terrorist organization. Sasha Petrusek joins me now from Jerusalem. And Sasha, what can you tell us about these charges?
Well, this is the first time that the U.S. government has gone after Hamas, the militant group that's dominant in Gaza, since October 7th, and really since before that as well, in this legal way. There are 6 charges, although this may be more symbolic than it is real, because at least 3 of the 6 people who are being charged are believed to be dead. And the most prominent of these, Sinwar, is somewhere in a tunnel in Gaza, effectively under siege by Israeli troops, and he may not make it out alive if they actually find him. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland says this process is just really the beginning of going after Hamas.
These actions will not be our last. The Justice Department has a long memory. We will pursue the terrorists responsible for murdering Americans and those who illegally provide them with material support for the rest of their lives.
Sasha, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said for any ceasefire deal to move ahead, Israel would need to maintain control of the Philadelphia corridor. What is at issue here?
Well, this corridor is a 14-kilometer strip of land along the border between Gaza and Egypt at the very south end. And it is riddled with tunnels which have been used in the past to smuggle weapons into Gaza. Israel says it needs control of the corridor to prevent those weapons from coming back in again after this war. But it's also become a very key barrier to any ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, which is critical because that would bring hostages home. Hamas is insisting that all Israeli troops leave Gaza before there's any agreement. Netanyahu, in his speech on Monday, insisted that Israeli troops would remain there, in particular along this Philadelphia corridor, indefinitely.
Thank you, Sasha.
My pleasure.
The CBC Sasha Petrusek in Jerusalem. The Bank of Canada will announce its latest interest rate decision later this hour. Many economists are predicting a rate cut of 0.25 percentage point. That would bring the key policy rate to 4.25%. It would be the 3rd consecutive cut by the central bank. Forestry is one of the highest carbon-emitting sectors in Canada. That is one of the findings from the annual logging emissions update. It looks at how the federal government accounts for forestry emissions. And as Ben Shingler tells us, this year's report raises questions about the accuracy of Ottawa's figures.
A harvester fells trees north of Montreal. The forestry sector generates tens of billions of dollars every year for the Canadian economy. But according to environmental groups, its greenhouse gas emissions are not fully accounted for. They say forestry is actually the 3rd largest emitter after oil and gas and transportation.
Government and industry need to stop claiming or portraying the industry as carbon neutral, as a climate solution.
Michael Polanyi is with Nature Canada and one of the authors of a new report that says Ottawa doesn't include emissions from things like wildfires, which produced a record amount last summer. But once those forests grow back, the government designates the carbon they absorb to the forestry sector. Polanyi says this misrepresents the true climate cost of the sector.
The government needs to put in place an action plan, incentives and regulations to encourage lower carbon approaches to forestry, which will also help the sector economically in terms of accessing global markets that are increasingly demanding more sustainable products.
United Nations experts and government watchdogs have also been critical of Canada's emissions accounting. Natural Resources Canada says the government's approach is based on scientific evidence, but that it's working on changes. As for industry, the Forest Products Association of Canada didn't return a request for comment, but in the past has said the forest sector is committed to cutting greenhouse gases. Ben Shingler, CBC News, Montreal.
Climate change is creating a race against time for Canada's archaeologists. Many are trying to dig and save as many artifacts as they can along the country's coastlines before they erode. Nicole Williams has that story.
Here on the shores of the Ottawa River, archaeologists are busy digging, scraping, and sifting in the hopes of finding a piece of history. Around the nation's capital, archaeologists have found artifacts older than the pyramids, many left behind by Indigenous people, who would use the rivers and lakes in the regions as highways, traveling by canoe to meet and trade goods.
The land is very important, and it tells our story and it tells our history.
Jennifer Tanasco is from Gitigan-Zibi Anishinaabe. Archaeologists have partnered with the First Nation and others to try and help uncover that history, and in part save as many artifacts as they can from erosion. Monica Micah is an archaeologist with the National Capital Commission.
But it is definitely sad as an archaeologist to literally see artifacts falling into the river, never to be recovered again.
But experts say the combination of more powerful storms and the loss of sea and lake ice means shore and coastlines are eroding away faster than ever. Matthew Betts is with the Canadian Museum of History.
The world is in the grips of an unmitigated heritage crisis caused by climate change. Canada sits at the apex of this crisis.
Betts says there aren't enough resources to dig every archaeologically significant site, and it means making difficult choices about what history to save. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Nicole has more on this story on our main page at cbcnews.ca, including pictures of some of the artifacts that archaeologists are saving. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Back to school, everybody. We're getting close now. You're probably maybe already arriving at school on the bus. Maybe you're getting ready for a big transition year. Some 200,000 students will head back to class in Manitoba today. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. Well, this half hour on the show, we're going to take you to a school. CBC's Jim Agapito is out at a Cole Charleswood school. He's going to hear what the excitement is like there from the principal who's getting ready for day number 2 on the school cycle, in case you're paying attention. In addition, this half hour on the show, we're going to hear advice from you. You've been writing to us this morning. We asked what's your message to Manitoba students as they head back. Everything's coming in from being nice to people, don't bully them, to build your brain, real intelligence, not AI or artificial intelligence. We'll get more of your comments on the air this half hour. Stay with us. First, though, let's go to Heather Wells for headlines.
Good morning. Well, one thing Manitoba students won't be packing in their backpacks, won't be carrying into class, is their cell phones. It is the first day of a cell phone ban. The rules set out by the province prohibit kindergarten to grade 8 students from using phones during school hours. Students in grades 9 to 12 can only use their phones during lunch and other breaks. Alan Leberge, a superintendent at Division Scolaire Franco-Manitobain, says they piloted a similar ban for the past year and students became more involved in their studies, he says. A curtain installed below the surface of Clear Lake to isolate zebra mussels was only in place for 2 days. Parks Canada says that curtain was dislodged by high wind, and now Parks is working with a contractor to try to push the curtain back into place. We're going to hear from some people in Clear Lake coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, we're about to get into the weather forecast, but I can't resist, Abby. Earlier this morning, we were talking about, who were you at school and what would you say to your younger self, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I was talking about how I was student council, drama. And can you reshare what you said? Because it was so lovely.
I'm the guy that gets on the bus and I say, "Good morning, Bill." I still remember his name. His name is Bill.
Bus driver.
The school bus driver. And the song is still in my head. The wheels of the bus go round and round, round and round.
Oh,
That's just in my head right now.
Before we get into the weather, I just actually want to note, I know we talk a lot about students and teachers, of course, but on this day, welcome back, bus drivers, janitors, crossing guards, volunteers, parent volunteers, all the people that make school work, right? What about the coaches, the support workers, the EIAs? I hope you all have a wonderful first day back. All right, it's going to be pretty warm for it, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a warm one, a mix of sun and clouds today. We're going to see some smoke roll in most regions. Breezy conditions, a chance of showers or thunderstorms expected in forecast. We're going to see temperatures ranging from 7 in the north to 26 in the south. Currently, Winnipeg is at 19 degrees. We should see a mix of sun and clouds with us all through the day. A slight chance of showers this morning. Expect some local smoke becoming more widespread as we get to the afternoon period. and that would shift as some light breeze comes from the northwest as the day progresses. We'll see a high of 25. That light rain has stopped in the northern part of the province. Now we have more of like cloudy conditions, clear in 6 in Churchill, 10 in Thompson, and then down south we're seeing more like 16 to 19, still misty in Dauphin, and of course air quality advisory in effect due to that smoke you're getting. So it's just going to be a mix of sun and clouds. Some smoke will move in the afternoon, a slight chance of showers, and partly cloudy conditions, cooler temperatures in the evening, and highs near 25, 26.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into now what's happening on your morning commute with Chloe Friesen.
Good morning. Lashmodiere is a very busy spot right now this morning. So Lashmodiere and Dugald, emergency crews currently blocking the southbound curb lane. So keep left, use caution while passing. I got a call from Kelso saying that there's already a lot of delays at southbound Lashmodiere at Dugald. And then also earlier today we heard about northbound Lashmodiere just between Fermor and Sage Creek. And earlier it was already slow about an hour ago this morning due to construction in that area. You're down to one lane in a lot of places. Thank you, Natasha, for that call. So if Lash is part of your commute this morning, maybe give yourself a little bit of extra time or find a different route. And then also, we heard earlier from Keith about a stall northbound Keewatin and Inkster. That was just in the intersection there, blocking a few different lanes. So proceed with caution if you're traveling northbound Keewatin at Inkster. You can still get around, but Keith, who called, said that there was a few backups there. If there's anything else going on your commute that you think we should know about, you can give us a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, CBC's Jim Agapito is out. He was out earlier this morning, in fact, and he's just stayed out there at a Cole Charleswood school in Winnipeg. So we heard from the superintendent live this morning getting ready for the year. But this is a dual-track school. So there's French immersion for students in grades 5 to 8, and then there's English program for students in grades 6 to 8. And this morning, he is now joined by the principal. I can see you there, Jim, outside the school now. Hi again.
Hi, Marcy, and I got to tell you, there's a little bit more electricity in the air. I've seen some hugs by students, I've seen a couple of the teachers, meandering around. It's going to be a great day for them today. But right now, I have a call Charleswood School Principal Shelley Hobson with me. Hi, Shelley.
No, Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Yes.
Sorry. Peggy, tell me, first day of school as a principal, what's that like for you?
It's a whole bunch of emotions. There's been lots of planning that's gone into today and a little bit of loss of sleep, but just a lot of anticipation and excitement, Jim, about the day.
Now, Peggy, what's the mood like for teachers so far?
We had an orientation meeting with our staff yesterday, and the mood was excitement, certainly taking in a lot of information, but the excitement of can hardly wait to see our kids.
And that's the thing, the excitement here. What are you most excited about?
Same thing, seeing the kids. We've put a lot of planning into the last few weeks of the summer, a lot of planning into today and the school year. And now we just need to have those children fill our school and bring the excitement that we want to share with them.
Now, with the new cell phone ban on cell phones this year, how will your school be implementing the rules?
We started last year, Jim. The community is very supportive. So last year, students were not to use cell phones in classes. The difficult areas to monitor were lunch and breaks. So we've been working with our parents and our parent council this year because we are concerned about the amount of Snapchatting or TikToking that kids do that tends to be negative and interrupting the development of a good self-concept. So we're taking the second step with the directives from the province.
Now, mental health is always an issue for students returning to class and for kids that are new to the school, which you have a bunch of. So what do you do to make them feel at ease?
Well, mental health is certainly an increasing issue over the last few years, and it's also adolescence. So people are trying to find themselves, and kids have difficulty if they think that they can't do some things, or they think that people won't like them. So what we do is a lot of relationship building, a lot of teaching and helping kids to develop that you're okay the way you are, and that is work that threads through every day of our years, because of middle years, adolescence. They need to hear that, and then they start to celebrate themselves instead of the opposite.
Peggy, day one, challenges for new teachers, on day one, after the kids have been away for the entire summer, what do you tell them?
We tell them, don't talk to your kids as much as we had to on the first day. We had to share a lot of information, and you'll want to share a lot of information about the do's and don'ts and what we're going to do, but just get in there and have some icebreaker activities and spend time with them so they'll go home and say, we had a really good day.
Now, Peggy, now that school zones are in effect again, what are some reminders you want parents and motorists to know?
Dropping kids off at school in school zones is tricky because parents want to drive their kids to school. So what they need to know is that, yes, you want to get your child as close to the school as you can, but obey the traffic rules because we don't want kids hurt out there. So also there's quite a few parking lots close to our school where parents can use to drop their kids off, and then they could walk a little bit of a distance to stop the crowding on the streets.
Peggy, last question. One of your favorite memories of the first day of school. Share that with our audience.
The feeling of new, the new shoes, the change of weather, the smells, and I think that feeling of anticipation that we all have inside, and just releasing that and saying it's going to be okay.
Thanks so much, Peggy.
Thank you.
Peggy Hobson is the principal at École Charles Wood School in Winnipeg. Back to you, Marcy.
All right, thank you too. Appreciate it. You can hear the kids in the background now just getting into class and getting ready. And we're going to hear actually from the students at 8:30 in the news, so stay with us here on CBC. Jim's been with Peggy Hobson, and last hour, in fact, he was with the superintendent of the school division, Shelley Amos. So he's had a number of interviews out there live for us this morning. Thanks to Jim. 8:21 is the time right now. I'm Marcy Marcusa, 19 in Winnipeg, mostly cloudy. The high today, 25. Brandon is 17. Thompson is 17. And in Dauphin, you do have an air quality statement. So you'll note the smoke, especially if you're walking for back to school today. It's a little bit smoky up there. I want to mention some comments that are coming, and we always like to ask you special questions on this first day back for the students. And today we asked you for advice for the students who are going back today in Manitoba. Jason Carter says, ride your bike. It's your planet. Constance Craven with a reminder, don't bully anyone. Listen to your teacher. Kev Roberts saying, have fun. Totally agree with you, Kev. Ryan Kochi says, always better to be a touch late and happy than on time and miserable. Take the extra minute to help process early morning emotions if need be. Maybe you need an extra hug. 60 seconds, it can make all the difference in a person's day. So Ryan says, be the change, be kind, be empathetic, and that implies to partners as well. So obviously that's for the parents and the families and the schools and all the fields today. And then finally, Randy Bolt saying, don't go into debt unless the course of study is guaranteed to offer a career that pays enough to comfortably pay it back and raise a family. So that's obviously a note for those going into post-secondary education who are back in class this fall. So if you want to weigh in, please do. Now, speaking of all the big feels, here are the Arkells, and the tune's actually called Big Feelings. Arkells and Big Feelings, always a lot of them on their first day back at school.
Taking a look at your 7-day forecast, it's going to be a real scorcher out there.
We are overheated. This weekend, explore the impact of rising temperatures with some of your favorite CBC Radio 1 programs. Heat and Climate on What on Earth with Laura Lynch. Heat and Science on Quirks and Quarks with Bob McDonald. Heat and Health on White Coat Black Art with Dr. Brian Goldman. Listen live, on demand on the Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
8:26 a.m. Let me just pull up both my cell phones and see. Hi, Lori Hookstratton. Are you in here?
Hi, Marcy.
To tell us what's coming up on? I have both my phones. Can the YouTube people see this? No, they're seeing traffic right now. There we go. We got it. Well, Kevin's gonna get the shot on me. This was my fancy attempt at having a prop or two. See the cell phones?
Well, you have them in your hands.
Can you all guess why these are up here today and what Lori's here to talk about? Your call-in today.
Our call-in today. You have them in your hands. The students do not. Remember, it would be so sad. You see the kid getting on the bus, having to leave their dog. The dog would be sitting there, and it's so sad to leave that behind. Now, you can just kiss your cell phone goodbye. It's like, bye-bye.
Crying over the screen protector.
And then, so then in schools, because this province-wide ban has just started, schools have to learn to navigate this. How's it going to work? And the other thing is, do cell phone bans work? We're going to look into the science of it, excuse me, and we want to ask you, how is that going to affect your kid? Or maybe you think it won't. Maybe you're thinking it's a very positive thing. Maybe you're worried about safety. And what challenges do you think the kids will face? And are you worried as a parent? We want people to give us a call, of course, 780-0893, or you can text us at 588-7355, or I guess we can get a call in even earlier at 204-788-3797 if you don't have time to listen during the show.
I think you'll have a really robust conversation because this is a first year for this band. There's a lot of questions about it. There's, as you said, a lot of ways people will absorb it. And there's also some people that are still going to be saying, I don't think we need this. And others that are saying, I've been waiting to have this. Yeah. So whether your perspective is a teacher or a parent or a student, call Lori for the call-in conversation between 12:30 and 1. If you want to leave that message now, I'll just give you that number once again, 788-3797. And the call-ins between 12:30 and 1.
And feel free to use your cell phone to call.
All right. That's okay. You can do that. Thanks, Lori. It is now 8:28 a.m. Now, Chloe Friesen's actually popped back into the studio because on this busy morning where there's more traffic and, of course, students, buses, crossing guards, there are actually some things that are developing in traffic.
Yes, especially for traveling on Lage-Modier. So northbound Lage between Fermor and Sage Creek, we got a call earlier that traffic is very slow due to construction in that area. A lot of it is down to one lane as you're heading northbound due to construction, so really slowing things down. And then just probably half an hour ago, southbound Lage at Dugald, there are emergency crews in the curb lane. So traffic is very backed up due to that, says Kelso, who called. So that's southbound Lage at Dugald, emergency crews in your curb lane there. Also, you could still be seeing a stall northbound Keewatin at Inkster. It's in the intersection there, so it's blocking a few different lanes as you're trying to get around that intersection. There is room to pass, but just be careful on northbound Keewatin just at Inkster there. Thank you to Keith for that call. And you still have about 5 minutes here to call us about any other issues that you're seeing out there on this busier commute than usual as we're heading back to school. 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Chloe.
No problem.
Coming up on The Current, right after our program at 8:37 is when The Current starts. A lot of people have been moving to New Brunswick in the last couple of years. They've actually had a population increase. So it is good news for the province. They need population growth and they need workers there, but it has parents worried about overcrowded schools. So that conversation's coming up with Matt Galloway on The Current as they do a special edition live from Fredericton this morning. And so that is coming up right after our program. Once again, if you want to call Chloe late in the drive this morning on the commute, 788-3093. But right now it is coming up to 8:30 and time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 19 degrees in downtown Winnipeg. It's going to be a beautiful day to head back to school. Mix of sun and clouds with some smoke this afternoon, a high today of 25. Most Manitoba students are starting to settle in, getting back to schedules as they get back to school. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is at École Stanley Knowles this morning and joins us live. Megan?
Well, it's just been a steady stream of people, teachers and students coming in, and there's been a chorus of good morning everywhere with kids coming in to start the school year. Now, it is a little bit different here at École Stanley Knowles School, and of course across the province, because there is a across the board cell phone ban, certainly for K to 8, and that's what this school goes to. I was speaking with Taylor Breen. She's a grade 8 student, and she did bring her cell phone this morning, but she says she uses it on the way to school and home, so her parents know that she's safe. But she tells me she knows exactly what she's going to do with that phone once she gets settled into school.
I'm going to leave it in my fanny pack for now, but then until I get my locker code, I will leave it in my locker until the end of the day when I'm allowed to have it.
Now, also at school here, you're not allowed to have it at lunch times or breaks either. This is as it being an elementary school. I was speaking with Andrea Powell. She is the principal here at École Stanley Knowles School, and she says that they've been figuring out over the summer ways to keep kids occupied.
We sort of have them at different grade levels. We have multiple sets of chess and blokus and crib, and we're going to have, some game clubs so that kids really learn how to play. The interaction, the social interaction is what we're really going for, especially with our older kids in the middle years.
And so it's a busy morning here at École Stanley Knowles. Also new to the school this year, it is the first in the Winnipeg School Division that will have a full-time Punjabi immersion class for about 20 students from kindergarten to grade 2. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Now, when it comes to that cell phone ban, the superintendent of the division scolaire Franco-Manitoban knows what it's all about. Alan Leberge says they had a similar ban in place for last year when they piloted a cell phone ban.
Students being involved in their own education, like they understand now that the phone being away, it's not the end of the world if you don't get a text from your friend for an hour. It puts things in perspective that we lived a life that was very good before.
Leberge's division is set to limit screen time to no more than an hour a day this year. A curtain installed below the surface of Clear Lake in August was intended to isolate an area infested with invasive zebra mussels. But as CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, that curtain was only in place for 2 days.
Visitors to Clear Lake enjoyed the beach at Wasagaming in late July, while just down the shore, workers were assembling an 1,800-meter curtain. Parks Canada hoped to hive off a section of the lake where zebra mussels were found the previous fall. That curtain was completed on August 6th, but dislodged by high winds only 2 days later. Damien Walsh speaks for Riding Mountain National Park.
By the
the 8th of August, that curtain had moved out of where it was supposed to stay in the lake.
The curtain has not been moved back. Cottagers at Wasagaming say they're disappointed with Parks Canada. Kyle Basilow has had a cottage at Clear Lake for 20 years.
I don't know why they went to put that curtain up immediately to try and isolate the area.
Wall says Parks Canada is working with its contractor to redeploy the curtain in the hopes that area of the lake can be sealed off and treated with potash to kill the mussels. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Bank of Canada is expected to announce another rate cut this morning. The central bank already cut its key lending rate in June and July, but economists say further cuts are needed. Jim Thorne is chief market strategist at Wellington Altus Private Wealth.
Hey, listen, it's getting serious here. You cannot be gradual here anymore, Bank of Canada. You need to start accelerating your rate cuts.
The central bank's overnight lending rate now is at 4.5%. A Manitoba designer is getting ready to see her designs on the runway during Paris Fashion Week. Alicia Sutherland, owner and designer of Allie's Ribbons, lives in Winnipeg now, but originally is from Peguis First Nation. She heads to Paris later this month. Sutherland didn't give too much away about the collection she's showing, but she does say it includes gowns and some men's pieces.
Very intense ribbon work, I would say. I like to step outside the box with creativity on that. A lot of color, a lot of different types of textures and fabrics that are going to be combined into one gown.
Sutherland says she initially started sewing as a hobby in 2018 and then started her company in 2020. You can read more about her and her company and see some of those designs. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Thanks to Heather Wells, to Megan Ketcherson as well, who's been out and about at school this morning, as you heard, and to our news department, including Joni Nicolo, all live out there. Thanks to our live team here on YouTube this morning, Kevin Ipatebo, as well as Chloe Friesen and Abby Adiyemi, our hardworking team of associate producers, Jim Agapito, who's been out at school for us as well for the show, and also all of our guests as well, and our leaders in unit this week, who are Nellie Gonzalez and Wendy Parker, who've been producing. Well, this is just about a wrap. One last quick look at traffic, Chloe.
Yes, good news. Lashmodier and Dugald, those emergency crews have cleared, but we are looking at St. Mary's and Coniston. There's a stalled vehicle blocking your northbound curb lane, so keep left to pass. Expect some northbound delays on St. Mary's.
All right, thanks, Chloe. And Abby?
Expect a mix of sun and clouds today with some smoke during your lunch hour. We'll see highs ranging from 9 in the north all the way to 26 down south. Winnipeg will get to a high of 25. Right now, we are at 19.
All right, thanks very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, have a great first day back, everyone. And for those of you in the divisions where your first day is tomorrow, enjoy your last day of summer break, won't you? Take care, be well, and be safe out there. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow right here on Information Radio. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or YouTube. Take it easy.